Welcome everyone to the DFS Jags Fantasy Football Show. Yes, we are back. I'm Mike Thornton. I'm filling in for Mr. Riku Mukherjee. He's got some business to take care of, but he'll be back in the future. But I am fortunate to have one of the dynamic duo himself, Mr. Fantasy Football, Chris Caldwell. Chris, it's been a while, man. As the kids say, it's been a minute. How you been?
Good, man. Took 2 months off from this channel and talking about football, and been itching to get back, ever since the Super Bowl. So, not a day passes without thinking about it for me. So excited to come back and talk to you about this incoming rookie class and the impact that it's going to have on our fantasy football this year.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, last year you guys did a fantastic job. I mean, you helped me. I was producing behind the scenes, and it was helping me throughout the year in my fantasy football league. And before we get into the players, I mean, I kind of got screwed last year. My neighbor hits me up the day before, and he says, "Hey, Mike, you want to join my fantasy football league?" I said, "Sure." I'm an old timer here, Chris. I am expecting a traditional PPR league. I've been doing fantasy football before there was a thing called the internet. I used to have to go to the local store and get my USA Today paper in the morning on Mondays and go through the box score. And it's so easy these days. But I didn't realize he had something called the Super Flex, where you could start two quarterbacks. So I think it's important for you to kind of let the folks know out there, what are the different leagues? Because that'll also help us as we go through the players. Because some of these players I researched, Chris, I got to say, I mean, I wouldn't take them with a 10-foot pole this year. But I know there's some keeper leagues out there, and those are potential guys that you might want to have for those type of leagues. So why don't you get us all educated a little bit on the different types of leagues? And I know you play in many of them, so go ahead.
Right. Yeah, so your typical work league or friends league is going to be what a lot of people call redraft leagues, where you draft a new team every year. You start one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers. This is a very typical friendly league. But like you said, there is other leagues which are gaining a lot of popularity now. Like you said, you were in a super flex league. A super flex league is very popular, and it really lets the quarterback position shine more, because you can play a second quarterback as one of your two or three flex spots, whatever the league may choose. So it's very important to pay attention to the type of league that you're in, and that's really going to drive the way that your draft goes. As for the types of leagues, Dynasty Fantasy Football has really gained a lot of popularity in the last couple years. I myself, 3 years ago, was in 0 Dynasty leagues, and now I'm in 5, and hopefully joining more. It's a around the clock, 24/7, 365 type of league. You're kind of acting as a real GM, making off-season moves, getting rid of a veteran player to pick up more draft picks. It really feels like real football. So, if you guys out there have yet to join a dynasty league, I highly urge you to do it. It really, lets you stay in tune through free agency, through the NFL draft, and, never have an off week. You're always kind of checking the news to see, what player signs where, and be fully tuned into the NFL draft. And that's what we're going to focus on today is, what rookies are coming into the NFL this year that are going to have an immediate impact in fantasy football for your team.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was funny last year. So in the draft, I'm like, I have my strategy, my typical standard league strategy. And I see all these people taking quarterbacks, first round, second round. And I'm like, I'm going to kill these people. These people didn't know what the heck they're doing. Well, it was actually me who didn't know what the heck I was doing. But through your assistance and Rick's assistance, I was actually able to be the number one team going into the playoffs. And I mean, I got off to a fantastic start. But unfortunately, at the end of the year, going into the playoffs, I had some big injuries, and I just didn't have enough on the bench to replace them, and I ended up not getting in the money. But for a while there, it looked like it was going to be promising, considering that I got off to such a horrible start and had these terrible quarterbacks that I had to start. So it was interesting. But thanks again. I'm so happy you guys are back, and it's good to see you. So let's get
we'll
going.
get you that championship this year.
Yeah, let's go. And maybe I'll venture out and try some of these other leagues you're talking about, and I'll go back to my neighbor and I'll be ready this time with that super flex. So let's get into these players. We got a lot to talk about. I think we got 22 players on deck here for the folks. And let's start with the quarterbacks. I mean, talk to me about quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, so 2022 quarterbacks, you'll hear from pretty much everyone that this is not a year to need a quarterback and be in the NFL. This draft class is widely talked about as being the worst one in the last 8 to 10 years. A little bit of me believes that, but I think there's some bright prospects too. So I believe the top quarterback taken in the draft it's been like the number 1 or number 2 pick. I don't know the exact numbers, but 75 per 80% of the time, there's a quarterback taken first or second overall. This year, it's looking like it might not happen, and there might not even be 3-4 quarterbacks in the first round, which is highly odd. So, not a good year to be a QB needy team at the top of the draft. There's a couple players out there to take a risk on, and let's get into talking about them.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I was looking at these quarterbacks as I was doing the research, and I'm like these were some of these guys that I was like, I wouldn't touch these guys with a 10-foot pole this year. But in those keeper leagues or whatever, they may be somebody you want. So let's start with Malik Willis. We're going to kick it off with him. So tell me about Malik.
Yeah, so he is probably the only quarterback that I think will be in play for redraft dynasty leagues this coming year. Redraft leagues this year. If you're talking dynasty leagues, most of those are super flex. So all of these quarterbacks we're going to be talking about are very relevant in those formats where you're going to need to start 2 quarterbacks. But Malik Willis, very intriguing prospect. If you would ask even, the top football touts, 12, 18 months ago, what do you think about Malik Willis? They'd probably look around. Who are you talking about? This guy comes from Liberty University, small school, a little bit of a late blooming prospect. And he's kind of taken the NFL by storm. He showed up at the Senior Bowl and just absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. Everyone talks about this kid as like top-notch, 10 out of 10 leadership qualities. All the players at the Senior Bowl just flock to him. They look to him for advice. Everyone looks up to him. In interviews, he absolutely commands the microphone and the cameras. He just seems like that guy who's ready for the spotlight. And I know what else is ready for the spotlight: his wheels that he has on him and his big NFL arm. So guy has an absolute cannon. His deep ball, we'll talk about his touch in a little bit, but in terms of distance, guy has an absolute rifle of an arm. He showed it off at his pro day, throwing 60, 65 yards on the run. So he has every bit of an arm that you need in the NFL. And this past year, he ran for almost 100 yards a game. Now, mind you, this is in college where you get negative yards if you get sacked, and running quarterbacks tend to get sacked a lot because they're scrambling around quite often. So to average almost 100 yards a game with taking negative yards for stats is extremely impressive. Anything catch your attention so far? Sounds like a good fantasy football player.
Absolutely. Well, you have him compared to Mike Vick and Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, and those are big names, right? Those are very viable fantasy options. And if he lives up to even close to any of those, I mean, other than Justin Fields, the jury's still out on him. But Vic and Lamar, he's very similar, right? He, as you said, the touch is what's, he needs to work on that. Everything's a bullet. He's got a rocket. He's got like a Josh Allen type rocket arm, and he just needs to work on putting the touch pass there. But yeah, I mean, some of the things. I'm sorry, I don't want to jump into it. The only thing that concerned me with his year this year, Chris, in 13 games, he threw 12 picks. So he does seem to rely on that arm and like, hey, I can force anything. My arm will get it in there. And he threw 12 picks doing that. And a lot of the professional quarterbacks do that as well. They rely on that arm. Like Brett Favre used to do it. We say Josh Allen does it a lot of times, at least last couple of years. So He's a rookie, of course, right? He's going to improve. He gets with the right coach, it's only going to get better. And the only other thing is his height, 6'1". But I mean, I think those are the same height that Vic and Lamar was. So,
Right. Yeah. I think he's not the electric, dazzling runner that Lamar Jackson is. But to be fair, no one is.
yeah.
Lamar and Vic are in a class of their own in terms of running and playmaking, just in the style of runner that they are. But I also don't think he's as vanilla of a runner as, like, some people might get mad. Jalen Hurts, while he puts up rushing yards, a little bit of a vanilla runner. I mean, he gets yards, 8-10 yards at a time on scrambles, but Malik Willis is different than Jalen Hurts. Malik Willis is able to take a 30-40 yard run and house call it. Jalen Hurts, not really what he's trying to do. Jalen Hurts is very poised and will get yards in chunks, but Malik Willis is the electric, take it to the house playmaker with his legs. So when you're talking, fantasy football, I think you have a better fantasy player here than you do an NFL quarterback. So, and that's what we're playing, right? We're not NFL GMs, we're fantasy GMs. So, I don't know, man. I like the kid. Some people are saying he's going to go number 2 overall to the Lions.
Wow.
Probably a little rich for my blood, but all the reports on the guy's character and his leadership are nothing but A+++. So I think there's a really good chance here that a team gets a special player.
So I do want to mention, so on the slides that you see on the screen, you'll see that there's a draft rank average, right? And those are, a lot of this data came from 3 sources that I used. It came from PFF, NFL Draft Buzz, and CBS. So I took the 3, you'll see the 3 numbers. He's 25th on PFF, 30th on NFL Draft Buzz, and 23rd on CBS. These numbers are changing daily. So by the time I finished the slides, I was already noticing some folks were moving up the board, some were sliding down. So take it with a grain of salt. But right now he's averaging about 26 overall. So yeah, Chris, I'd be surprised if he's taken early on, honestly. But, especially second overall, there's so many other good players. Somebody has to really believe that this guy is going to be a game changer for them. Do you think, all right, you're drafting, Chris, and you're in a keeper league or one of these leagues that you can stuff him on your bench for a while. Is this a guy you're going to go after?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just for example, in a dynasty league, there's a couple leagues where I have the first pick, and this year, we'll get to it later, but the first pick this year, I don't think there's any debate that it could be anyone else but Malik Willis or Breece Hall, the top running back this year. So, in a 2 QB league, there's no possible way Malik Willis can fall out of the top 3 picks, simply because his floor with his rushing ability and his predicted draft capital, he's gonna get 2 to 3 years minimum of a chance to succeed in the NFL. Just the way that you can look at him is he's Jalen Hurts plus, right? I mean, yeah. Jalen Hurts was what, a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and Willis has a better prospect profile than Hurts. He's more electric of a runner and he has a bigger arm. So look at what Jalen Hurts is right now for fantasy football. And then, Malik Willis is pretty much guaranteed to be drafted by pick 9. I mean, there's 3 teams that are QB needy in the top 9, ending with the Seahawks at 9. If he doesn't go in the top 9, I give up and I'll never talk about fantasy football again. He has too high of a ceiling to make it out of the first 10 picks of the draft.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to take that bet with you, Chris. I'm going to say he's outside the top 10. Okay. So we'll see how that plays out. We have Sean. Do you know Sean King out there in the channel? See someone?
Yeah, Sean. Sean's my boy. Yeah.
He's asking for your best master bets. First of all, that's a show that's coming up tomorrow with Rick and Tony.
No talking about golf here. Yeah, so if you want masters bets on Nickel City Mafia channel, subscribe to the channel, and Rick and Tony, who also are on the channel, they know 10 times more about golf than I do.
Yeah.
And they will be giving their best DraftKings and betting bets tomorrow. I forget what time the show is, but I'll be watching. So I'll let you know my best Masters bets after I watch their show.
Yeah, I think they're going to be going off around 2 p.m. on the West Coast here, so around 5-ish on the East Coast. But, if you subscribe and you hit that alert, you'll be notified. And then he says, first pick is Breece Hall, not even a debate.
Yeah, I agree with that. In a one quarterback league, if we're talking dynasty leagues and you're talking rookies only in the rookie draft each year, in a one quarterback league, you typically won't see, like, for example, last year, Trevor Lawrence was heads and tails better than any quarterback prospect we've seen in a long time. So Trevor Lawrence was going 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th in one quarterback league drafts. Quarterbacks just aren't important if you're only starting one quarterback. So one quarterback league, you're going to see Malik Willis in the 8, 10, 11 range getting drafted, but in a 2 QB league, he can't fall out of the top 3.
All right. Well, we got a lot to get through, Chris, and I can already tell we're going to be going a long time here. We love to talk about football. So are you ready to move on to the next quarterback here?
Let's do it.
All right. Next guy on our list here is Kenny Pickett from Pitt. Talk to me about Mr. Pickett.
Yeah, so just right away, I think there's a big teardrop in terms of fantasy football, from Malik Willis to these other 3 guys we're going to talk about. Kenny Pickett, the conversation pretty much starts and ends, oddly enough, with his hands. He has, I don't know if they're the smallest ever, but he's in like the first or second percentile of QB hand size in the history of the NFL for quarterbacks. So it's not a good start. Not everything is about measurables, right? I mean, Tom Brady, drafted in the 6th round, looked like a child and wasn't really built like a quarterback. And I'm sure Kenny Pickett can overcome hand size, but it's definitely, when you're looking at historical trends, it's not a good start. When you have hands as small as him, he wears 2 gloves on his hands. And when you kind of watch him throw, he holds the ball with 2 hands a lot. And it almost looks like he's focusing on not dropping it. So I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about his hands, but when those measurements came out, everyone was like, oh man, this isn't a good place to start. Because typically with quarterbacks, especially if you're on a cold weather team, you want those big, dominant, strong hands to hold on the ball and take some sacks, right? So not a great start. Second red flag, and I hate to start with all the negative stuff, but for Kenny Pickett, it's kind of easy. He was a 1-year wonder. The guy was an absolute zero pretty much his whole college career, and then his last year, he just comes out and lights the world on fire at Pitt. And don't quite know the reason for that, but he wasn't even on the NFL draft radar leading into this year. And I don't know if this is like a Joe Burrow situation, because you can say the same for Joe Burrow, right? He wasn't, on the radar at all. Then he wins the national championship, and then he makes the Super Bowl. So those are probably few and far between. But it's a little worrisome that Kenny Pickett, didn't have a good year whatsoever until his last year. So
I want to talk about a good year. I mean, these seem like Madden numbers to me. 13 games. He threw for 4,300 yards, Chris, and 42 touchdowns with only 7 interceptions. Those are Madden numbers. Mm-hmm. That's insane. And again, you're right. The year before that, he threw for half that, 2,400 yards, but he only played in 9 games. So he played in fewer games, and he threw a few more picks, 9 picks. So again, I didn't watch a lot of Pitt, but these are ridiculous numbers. And he has a good arm strength. Obviously, he can put the ball where it needs to be. And again, I don't know what you credit that to. Did he have some, new talent around him this year? Possibly. Easier schedule? I don't know. I don't know what contributes to that. But amazing numbers.
Yeah, sometimes people are just a late bloomer, and I hate to keep bringing up Joe Burrow, but look at him. So. Yeah, I mean, he's got ideal size for a quarterback, 6'3", 217 pounds. He's not a bad athlete. He's never going to scare you with his legs, but he's a good enough athlete to escape sacks. And, if a team wants to play purely man to man against him, he can rip off a 10, 12, 15-yard run here and there. It's definitely, his athleticism is not a hindrance to his game at all. I wouldn't call him a running quarterback, but he's mobile enough. You see my comps for him are Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill. Two guys with good arms who, when needed, can escape the pocket and pick up first downs. And I think that's what Kenny Pickett's going to bring to you. He's got good leadership quality, good intangibles, and good enough athlete and an accurate passer. So seeing a lot of buzz, him going number 6 overall to Atlanta makes sense. They have a 1-year stopgap with Mariota at quarterback right now. So bringing in Pickett to Atlanta is making a lot of sense to me too.
All right, so let's see. Is there anything else I want to say about him? I had another thought on him. So that 4.73 40, it surprisingly, I mean, that's what Josh Allen runs, around a 4.7. So believe it or not, so he can be mobile if he needs to be. He's just a little undersized with the weight and decent height, 6'3", of course. So I don't know. Again, he's got 3 years under his belt, Chris. So like you said, maybe he was just a late bloomer. I mean, every year he got better. And so watch out. Gets to the NFL with some great coaches and some great talent around him. Who knows? Anything else, Chris? You ready to move on to our next guy?
Yeah, I just commenting on Sean's comment in the live chat. He said Pickett greater than Willis in real life. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think there's a couple quarterbacks that if I'm betting on it of, who I want to win a Super Bowl for me, I don't even know that Malik Willis is number 1 or number 2, but in fantasy football, with rushing yards driving so much of the output, it's hard not to absolutely love Malik Willis. I mean, he's Lamar Jackson-ish level of runner. And just look at what Jalen Hurts did. Can anyone watch an Eagles football game and say Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback? No, you're not. You cannot say that. It's painful to watch. He doesn't do much of anything till the fourth quarter. And he was like QB6 this year. So you can have an awful quarterback that's not doing anything, but if you have that rushing ability, it's all that matters in fantasy football. I think I'm going to start a new type of league, Mike, that doesn't quite jack quarterbacks up quite as much for their rushing ability, and like gives them more points for touchdowns and not quite as much for the yards, because it's really painful to have Jalen Hurts be a top 6 or 7 quarterback in whatever league you're playing.
Yeah, Sean says he'd like to see him at either Pitt or Carolina. And he's going to have to compete against Mitch. So he'd have a good shot over there. I do believe Mitch Trubisky, of course, he backed up Josh Allen this year. I'm a fan of his. I think he's going to have a rebound career. So we'll see.
Trubisky's in Pitt, right?
Yeah, he's in Pitt. So this is where Pickett would have to compete against to get that starting job.
Hometown boy, from Pittsburgh University to Pittsburgh Steelers. That'd be real cute, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the next guy here. Next on our list here is Matt Corral. Corral. All right, let's talk about him from Ole Miss, junior class. Talk to me a little bit about Matt.
He's interesting study for me. I'll be honest, I can't quite peg it. He's a really good athlete. As you see from his 40 time, 4.65 40. He has good height, 6'2". There's just something about watching him play. I'm just not wowed by it. He runs almost solely out of shotgun, and his offense was, read option, bubble screens, design plays where he's always going to the first read. I don't know. It's like, I feel like he's so dependent on landing in a spot that caters to his skills and an offensive coordinator that is going to run the type of offense that he would thrive in. He's not the quarterback to, diagnose a play and hit his third read down the seam. That's just not Matt Corral whatsoever. He's accurate. He's decisive. He can scramble. He has a strong arm. There's really no knocks on the guy, and maybe it's just the way he was like pigeonholed into his offense. But when you watch even good plays of his, it's just like, I don't want to say boring, but it's just he doesn't have the gunslinger roll out and hit a crossing route. It just, he doesn't wow me at all. But I hope I'm wrong, because he does have that rushing ability where if he can combine that, and really tap into his arm talent, you're looking at a real good player here. I don't know that he'll go in the first round of the draft. I guess if I had to bet on it, I would say he would, but I think he's pretty far behind these first two guys in terms of the draft capital he'll receive.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, he's average draft rank right now is 30th overall. I do not think he's going to go in the first round. I think he'll slip to the second. Just my opinion. Again, he can run. He's athlete, and he's only gotten better in his 3 years. I mean, again, I always like to see a guy that continues to get better and better. Last year, he threw for 3,300 yards and 20 touchdowns with only 5 picks. Very good. PFF had him rated as 86.1, and then in 2020 they had him rated as 90.5, and in that year he threw for roughly the same amount of yardage, 3,300, threw for 29 touchdowns, and what do we got here? 13 picks, a little more picks. So athlete and good arm strength is what the experts are saying. So I mean, I think if there's enough teams out there, and talk to Chris about the teams that you think are in need of a quarterback this year, that would take somebody like Matt.
Yeah. I think quarterbacks are a little bit tough to peg, okay, here's the draft order, therefore I think he's going to go here, because I feel like more often than not, when a team is seeking a quarterback, especially in the first round or early second round, there's a trade that happens. They trade up and take the quarterback. But if that weren't to happen, I can see him going to the Lions, the second pick of the second round, or the Texans. I think they have like the 5th pick of the second round. That's probably about where he belongs. It's quarterback. I don't want to, maybe not. Yeah, quarterback needy teams for the Lions, and then Texans, the jury's out. Davis Mills, decent rookie year. So, but I think they'll still add competition. So, I don't know. I can't really see. I can't see it right now that a team would be trading up in the first round, to take him in the top 20. So yeah. I don't know. I guess the Steelers at 20 would kind of be his ceiling from my point of view. And then, we'll see how far he slides after that.
Yep, I agree. Sean says the dude has zero pocket awareness, which, yeah, we have that on the slide there as well, some of the negatives. And by the way, you might see some things over on the positive and the negative that contradict one another. Just again, be aware that these are coming from different sources. So people have different opinions. And sometimes you'll see somebody who says doesn't have a great arm, and then over on the positive says has an NFL strength arm. So just keep that in mind if you see things that are contradicting. These are different sources that are evaluating these guys, of course, and also Chris and I.
Yeah, I think his offensive coordinator knew his limitations. That's why you consistently see the read option and screens as part of Ole Miss's offense. So, like I said, he's so landing spot dependent that we'll see.
All right, let's move on to our final quarterback, and a guy that not only looks like Baker Mayfield, but you actually, and I got to ask you, you said his player comp is Baker Mayfield. He looks like Baker. Looks like the guy in seeing those commercials. Mm-hmm. So right away, I mean, all right, talk to me about Sam.
Yeah, I wrote Sam down Howell, here athletic Baker Mayfield. I don't know that he's necessarily more athletic. I'll just say better Baker Mayfield, but my stance on Baker Mayfield. I think he's freaking awful. So it's hard to be. I mean, it's hard not to be better. Sam Howell is one of the more interesting prospects because he's so hard to pin down. If he would have entered the draft, if he would have been able to enter the draft last year, we're talking, he probably goes top 5. He had an absolute stud year. He was helped out by, his two great running backs that he had, Javonte Williams, and of course I'm blanking on the second one. That's Michael Carter, that's on the Jets, and he had De'Ami Brown, great wide receiver. He had weapons all surrounding him from head to tail, but his team just had no help this year, and this is the part about him that's so interesting. He was not a rushing quarterback whatsoever his first couple years, and then his last year in college, the guy runs for 800 yards and 11 touchdowns just out of the blue. I mean, he is a complete non-factor on the ground his whole college career, and then once his help goes out the window, he loses his running backs and receivers. All of a sudden, he's a dual threat quarterback and scores 11 touchdowns. So I think he ran, I didn't double check this 40 time, but I think he ran over a 5-second 40-yard dash. So the guy is not a quality athlete, but when you watch him play, he has no fear. I mean, the guy will run whenever, and he actually looks good doing it. So I don't know how this is going to translate to the NFL, because so much of fantasy football is dependent on rushing upside. But if he's discovered this part of his game in his final year at North Carolina that he wants to take to the NFL, and he's going to rush like that, I think he's going to be great. I mean, I'll say, aside from Willis, I mean, Howell's going to be my guy. I don't think that he's guaranteed to be better than Pickett, but just he's going to have later draft capital, and I think a team is going to get a really nice quarterback for where they're going to have to draft him, which is going to be later in the first round or sometime in the second round. Because, like I said, if he just decides to comes out last year, he's slam dunk top 5 pick, and don't really see a way not to do it. And he was the consensus number 1 quarterback of this draft class coming in this year, and had no weapons. Not really his fault, but the tape on this guy, if you just watch, you just constantly think quarterback, decisive, good arm, he's creative. I think he's going to be my guy. So whoever waits and gets him in the second round, I think they have a good shot to get a starting quarterback here.
Wow, it is actually surprising. I mean, the guy ran, like you said, he ran for 1,072 yards in 2021 and had 63 tackles. And he's not that big. I mean, 218, that's not a big guy. And his speed is 4.87, Chris, according to the combine, or at least to one of the sites I use, close to the 5 that you mentioned. But still, a guy that big, how is he able to run like this? This is unbelievable. But I gotta say, Chris, he's been consistent in his 3 years. Threw for 3,600 yards in 2019, 3,500 yards in 2020. Yeah, he had a little bit of a dip in 2021 when he threw 3,000 yards. But he had 38 touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns. So he's been a little bit of a decline, but that could have a lot to do with, who he's had around him. Talent. Maybe he lost some talent there in that last year. So, again, man, I can't get over how much he looks like Baker Mayfield. Like if Baker needed a double to fill in for him on one of those commercials, this guy could be that guy.
Yeah, it's uncanny. So yeah, it's funny that he gets so many comps and his play style to Baker as well. So he certainly won't get the draft capital that Baker did, but hopefully he has a better NFL career. But yeah, the 63 broken tackles is certainly interesting. But he's got fancy feet. He's great at eluding sacks and great at eluding would-be tacklers when he's running the ball too.
Yeah, that's just crazy to me. Now he's on the boards that I looked at. He's anywhere from going 22nd overall all the way up to 55 for an average draft rank of 36 overall. So that put him in the second round somewhere. So I don't know. For me, he's probably going to go in the second, but to me, it's going to be towards the later half of the second round. I don't see this guy coming in and being a starter for anyone, and this year at least. And maybe he's a project that someone wants to take on. I don't know, but you're not going to get any value this year. Maybe you run some gadgets with him. I mean, what was the guy's name again from New Orleans? He's a starting quarterback now, but
Taysom Hill,
right, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I could see him doing that for a team this year and producing that way. But he's going to be backing someone up. And, if he ever gets a chance, I don't know. I just, based on what I'm seeing, I don't know. You can't be running the ball like this. You're definitely not going to be able to run like that at that size in the NFL. You will get killed. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. I think he's an interesting one. So it's just the hit. He was an early declare. So he was this was his junior year the past year. So he's going to the NFL as soon as he could. It's just a shame that if he could have left last year, he was such a high pick. So
right.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how his career works out.
All right. Well, we had Shane. He had to take off and get to bed. I guess he's on the East Coast with you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So Shane, if you see this again, or if you watch the show tomorrow, or check the show out tomorrow, but thanks for joining us today. And hopefully you hit that subscribe button. I always forget, Chris. It's been a while. I'm a little rusty, but yeah, if you're new to the channel, please give us a comment, like, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button for us. We greatly appreciate it. All right, let's move on here. We're going to get into the running backs and talk to me about the running backs this year, Chris.
This year the running back position is, I'd say, the weaker of the two positions between running back and wide receiver. To me, it's pretty top heavy. There's 2, maybe 3 prospects that I think are immediately relevant in 2022 fantasy football. Of course, if you're playing dynasty fantasy football, there's probably closer to 8 to 12 prospects that you're really going to be interested in. But immediately in 2022, probably 3, maybe 4 prospects, and because it is very top heavy. However, there's some interesting prospects as you kind of go down the draft board, people that might not contribute right away, but if an injury happens or something like that, they could really step up. However, when we get into wide receivers, we'll talk about the difference there, how there's probably 6, 7, 8, 9 immediate impact wide receivers in this year's class. So between running back and wide receiver, running back's definitely the less talented group. However, very top heavy, and there's a couple guys that I think with the right landing spot could absolutely produce right away year one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at his speed. He's 4.39. He's got great receiving skills. He basically is very difficult to tackle in the open field with the ball. He's got tremendous balance. So, and
you going right to Breece Hall? Is that who you're going with?
Well, I mean, when you say,
I didn't know if we went to their slide.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh man, I jumped right into him, didn't I?
Yeah. You're so excited.
I am so excited. So yes, I jumped into Breece Hall, our first running back. Sorry, Chris.
It's all good.
And yeah, so let you start. I'm sorry. Let me step back a little bit. But yes, Breece Hall looks like one of the guys that definitely to me is, even though the boards, I got to say, they have him going in the second round and late second round on the 3 boards that I looked at. And that could have changed again. I tell you, every day these things are, guys are moving up and down. But he's got the skill set. He's got a 4.39, 5'11, 217, great receiving back. And again, another guy who broke 63 tackles last year. Again, solid receiver, as I said. And what are some of the other things? Lacking in pass protection, but people can work on that. I mean, you get in with these NFL coaches, they'll work on that. I'm not too worried about that. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Tell me about Breece. What you got for him?
Yeah, he's one of the better running back prospects that we've seen in quite some time. His combination of size, he's, I don't want to say perfect, but damn near perfect size that you want for a workhorse 3-down running back, the 5'11, 220. You're talking Zeke size, Jonathan Taylor, maybe a little bit smaller than Jonathan Taylor. And he doesn't really have that. I wouldn't call his speed like home run hitting, 75-yard touchdown speed. But he does have enough speed to hit the second level and, rip off those 20, 30-yard runs. The thing with Breece Hall is there's not many chinks, if any, in the armor, right? I mean, this guy is just rock solid. He's an early declare. He's only 20 years old. He has perfect size. He hit all the metrics in terms of speed and burst and agility. He's not only a great receiver as like he can catch dump off passes. He can run routes. He can make diving catches, one hand catches. He's a weapon in the receiving game. So this guy, I don't think he has the ceiling of a Jonathan Taylor, a Saquon Barkley, like the LaDainian Tomlinson type. Some people are kind of comping him to LaDainian Tomlinson, that kind of skill set.
Wow.
I'm saying like LaDainian Tomlinson skill set, but like light. I'm going to say, he's like a Matt Forte, a David Montgomery plus. The David Montgomery comp is popular because they went to the same college. Breece Hall is a much better athlete than David Montgomery, but, very similar skill set, can always make guys miss, consistently going to be ripping off those 6, 8, 10, 12-yard runs, but not quite, the threat to take it to the house like Jonathan Taylor. So that's kind of where you're at with Breece Hall. It's just so hard to envision him failing. He's going to get drafted somewhere between the 25th pick and the 40th pick of the draft.
Yeah. That's
kind of just how we are in today's game with running backs. They're being devalued, and it's like every team's in it together almost to say, let's just take running backs in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, even if they're great. So it is what it is. But yeah, you're seeing the best running backs each year, start to come off the board, pick 25, 30. So I think, Mike, he could land with your Buffalo Bills in the first round and talk about a nice piece to your offense.
Chris, I hear you, but I have a lot of faith in Mr. Singletary, and we brought over Duke Johnson from the Dolphins, and we still have Moss. Bills changed things up last year towards the end of the season, and Singletary was just solid. And I think we have other needs in that first round, but that's another discussion. But yes, that would be a great piece. People keep saying, I've seen folks on the mock drafts have the Bills taking a running back. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was available, but I think we have some other needs. I just want to throw out some numbers of this guy. Over the 3 years of his career, he ran for 900 yards in 2019, 1,500 yards, and then 1,500 yards again. So very consistent. Rushed for 9 touchdowns, then 21 touchdowns, and 20 again in his both his sophomore and junior year.
Touchdown machine.
I mean,
I think.
Yes.
I don't know the running count, but I don't want to say it and have it wrong. I think he scored a touchdown in like 25 straight games or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
He's just unreal, the way, just his consistency and his production. Just think with him, as long as he lands on a team and is the primary running back, which it's almost definitely going to happen, the absolute floor for this guy is David Montgomery, who's been a very productive fantasy running back for 3 years now. So just think, the worst I can get is David Montgomery. The peak you can get, you're probably talking Zeke Elliott. I mean, that's really shooting the moon, but he's really that solid of a prospect.
Yeah, I am actually surprised that they have him going, at least the boards I looked at, going deep into the 2nd round. It is very surprising, but it just, to me, it shows you like Chris, there's so much talent in the wide receivers, which we're going to talk about later. There's so much talent there. Cornerbacks at our premium in the league, and there's so much good talent at the cornerbacks, defensive tackles, edge rushers. I mean, there are studs this year, so I can see maybe why he's fallen down to the 2nd round, but many years this guy could potentially be a first rounder. Your friend Sean was funny, right? He said he's a first round pick, but I think he was talking more fantasy football maybe than anything else.
He was saying he should be the first overall pick in rookie drafts this year.
Rookie drafts, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. I don't think there's, even if you're playing a 2 QB league, I think just Breece Hall is such a safe pick that, even though Malik Willis has that upside, Breece Hall, it's just I can't envision him failing. So he's the first pick overall in a rookie only draft this year.
Good point. We should probably make sure we talk about that, Chris, because a lot of us who only play these traditional leagues, if we do get involved in some of these more advanced leagues, be nice to know, if this was a guy for that, particular type of league. So it'd be helpful to know that information. So appreciate that. I see my son Brandon out there. Haven't seen him in a while. He's back there in Buffalo. Good to see you, Brandon. Always appreciate you coming out and showing some love for the channel. And let's see here. Are we ready to move on to the next one there, sir?
Let's do it.
All right. Next on our list is Mr. Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. Talk to me about Mr. Walker.
Kenneth Walker. So he is interesting because I believe that he is a better runner than Breece Hall. The problem is he has shown little to no ability to be involved in the passing game. So when we're talking NFL running back, there is a chance that Kenneth Walker in the right scheme on the right team is a more productive NFL player and more valuable to his team than Breece Hall is. There's a chance. However, for fantasy football, Kenneth Walker is an absolute zero in the passing game, or at least has been in his college career. Sometimes there's players in their college career that are zeros or close to it, that when they get to the NFL and the coach says, guess what, you're catching passes now, they do just fine with it. And their college offense just didn't require it. A mild example is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was not involved in his college passing game, but Kenneth Walker was even less involved than that. He was very rarely throwing the ball. I don't even think he averaged one target a game, not one catch a game. I don't think he averaged a target a game, which is problematic when you're playing fantasy football and you're getting points for receptions, right? So it's really unfortunate. And I hope that he gets a coach that wants to work on him in the passing game and have him be a 3-down, well-rounded back. Because if this guy would have had 20, 25, 30 catches a year in college, we'd have a real argument with who's the top running back in this class. However, I can't do it. He's super talented. He has, he's 5'9", 211, being 211 pounds and only 5'9". The guy is just built. I mean, he's stacked, absolutely elusive runner. Just constantly sheds tackles and can hit a home run anytime he touches the ball. Just a different type of runner than Breece Hall. Breece Hall is going to constantly break off that 7 to 12 yard run. Kenneth Walker's looking to house call it. So just really excited to see him play. My comp for him, you notice my two comps, neither of them are really pass catchers. So Ryan Matthews and Nick Chubb. So two guys that are just absolutely uber talented with the ball in their hands on the ground, but aren't really used in the passing game. So that's what I think we're going to see from Kenneth Walker. And interested to hear your take.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I mean, he's got speed similar to Breece, who we just talked about. But check this out. I mean, when you said that, I had to look at the stats. I went not used much in the receiving game, and which we have up on the slide as well. But check this out. This is ridiculous. In 2019, Chris, 3 receptions for 7 yards. In 2020, 2 receptions for 2 yards. And in 2021, 13 receptions for 16 yards. That is unbelievable for a guy that's supposed to be really good in open space and has good wheels and is hard to tackle. You would think they'd work him into some swing passes, get him get the ball in his hands, but no, they didn't. And that's just shocking to me when looking at those numbers. I was expecting, not a lot of receptions, but 2 and 3 and 13. Yeah,
You want to hear what makes it worse?
Yeah.
That's on 2 different teams. That's on with 2 colleges. So it's not like he was on a program that just said, hey, you're our bell cow. We're going to feed you 25 carries a game and then just not use you in the passing game. It's that happens from time to time. But this is on 2 different programs. Yeah. So it's very obvious that whatever he has going on or lack thereof,
those hands
in
aren't
the passing
working.
game, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe he has the yips, when the ball's thrown to him. I have no idea, but man, it's not great for fantasy, right? So even, you're talking about as someone as skilled as Nick Chubb and, gets the volume, scores touchdowns, or think of like a Derrick Henry, This guy's not built like Derrick Henry, but in order for Derrick Henry to have a top 3 or 4 fantasy football year, he's got to run for 120 yards a game, 100 yards a game. He's got to score 18 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's for him to even sniff the top 3 or 4. So if he doesn't get to that level of that dominance, that volume, he's never going to get there. So you're talking about Kenneth Walker's ceiling in fantasy football is like running back 12, running back 15, that area. If you don't catch the ball, man, you're just not playing the game. So, it's unfortunate, but that's who he is.
Yep, I hear you. All right, moving on. Next on our list is Mr. Isaiah Spiller. Talk to me about Mr. Spiller from Texas A&M.
Very interesting study. It's kind of hard to knock the guy. His stats for the last 3 years are so consistent that it's almost creepy. He has almost identical stats 3 years in a row. His yards per carry, I believe, was like 5.4, 5.5, 5.6.
5.5, 5.5, and 5.7, Chris. You're absolutely right.
It's like right on, right. And look at his catch total per year. Read it to me.
29, 20, and 25.
Right there. And his yards per year. Read that to me.
Rushing yards, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. I mean, like 1,000 in some change, but pretty much rounded 1,000. So consistent. You're right.
His usage, his amount of carries, his amount of yards, and his touchdowns, I think it was between 6 and 10 every year, no matter what. So it's hard to knock the guy because he is like the prototypical. He's going to take exactly what the defense gives him. He was in a good offense there at Texas A&M. So it's just, he's so tough because he does absolutely nothing that will wow you. I mean, I guess it's nice to see a big back like him. He's on the bigger side. Have solid hands. That's one thing that I think he's above average at. However, with the ball in his hands, does little to nothing that's going to make you say like, ooh, that guy's going to make NFL linebackers look silly. Does nothing. So he's so interesting in that he produced year after year and he always was healthy. He always was there to, rack up the yards and touchdowns. However, I'm not sure that his athleticism or lack thereof and special traits really translate to the NFL. I think he was just one of those guys that was above average, pretty above average in college, but he just doesn't have that special trait or two that's going to get him on an NFL field and keep him on an NFL field and produce for a team.
Is this somebody you would take a risk on and hold on to for a year or so in one of these fantasy football leagues?
Yeah, I think, before Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker did their testing at the combine and we really found out how dynamic of athletes they are, Isaiah Spiller was in the talks for RB1 this year, just because of his production alone. But the guy's a slug, man. He is slow. He's just, he's nimble in that he can break tackles in tight spaces, but he is not going to win any foot races. And he didn't even run at the combine. I think he ran at his pro day, 4.64 at his pro day, which is scary because pro days are always faster than combine.
Wow.
So that 4.64 is probably a 4.7. So, man, I don't know. There's not a long list of running backs that run a 4.7 that are starting running backs in the NFL.
Exactly. So I think he talked me out. I wouldn't touch him. I mean, it says multiple broken tackles in every game, yet over on the negative side, little contradiction, pushed back by bigger linemen more often than you'd like. So it's like the guy's breaking multiple times.
Nimble, not strong. Yeah,
not a special runner. So I agree with you on this one. I think I can see why he's fallen now towards the third round is what it's looking like. And again, this is crazy. This board here, I want you to look at this. PFF had him at 102. And NFL Draft Buzz has them at 49, and so does CBS at 49. So interesting where they have him compared to PFF. And again, you can go check the boards today, and I'm sure he's gone up a few and dropped a few on some of the boards.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where the first two running backs are kind of in a tier of their own, and then there's a really big drop off talent and quality wise and athlete wise to Isaiah Spiller. So I actually like the next guy that we're going to talk about.
Okay, let's get into him
more than Isaiah Spiller.
It's kind of scary, Chris. We're only 3 running backs in. We got at least 4 more, 5 more, and if we're already starting to get to some of the bad ones, hopefully we didn't put them in order, because a little scary. If I'm not touching Spiller.
I will mention that the order that we're talking about, everyone by position, is the order that they're going right now in Dynasty rookie drafts.
Okay.
According to Sleeper, which is the app that I use to play Dynasty. So right now, Breece Hall obviously is the first running back being taken. And then Kenneth Walker, and then Isaiah Spiller. 2 months ago, Isaiah Spiller was first or second, and he's falling down. And I think by the time the NFL draft comes around, he's going to be even lower than 3. I'd put him at 4 or 5.
All right. Next on the board here, we got Rachaad White from Arizona State. So what you got on Rachaad?
So Rachaad White, he's definitely one of my guys. I love this guy. I think he's going to be a multi-year 3-down back in the NFL and be very productive. He's interesting because he was only played running back for 2 years in college, his junior and senior year. So yes, he stayed all 4 years in college, but he only had running back stats his last 2 years. So his senior year, get this, 1,500 total yards and 16 touchdowns in 11 games. So, almost 1.5 touchdowns a game, almost 150 yards a game. And the best stat that goes along with this, he averaged 4 receptions a game. At 6 foot, wow, 214 pounds, averaging 4 receptions a game. My comp for him is David Johnson. You got a big boy who has some mitts on him and can catch. Yeah. So I also think that he shows a really nice wiggle and explosiveness too. So that's why I put the Alvin Kamara comp in there. He racks up the receptions like Kamara, and he has that make you miss that Kamara does too. So I don't know, man. I think I'm a lot higher on him than most people, and a lot of casual players don't really know about Rachaad White, but he is coming on really late in the process here, especially since the combine. He has that speed to go along with ideal size. And he's an older prospect. He's 23 years old, but again, very raw to the running back position because he's only played it for 2 years. So I think he has, a lot more learning to do. And I think if he lands in the right spot, sits and can sit behind a veteran running back for a year and then take the reins, I think that's his ideal spot.
But you might have picked the sleeper of the year right here, Chris, based on what you're talking. You're right. Maybe he is right now. The average draft rank is 127, so that puts him somewhere in the 4th round. Fourth round, late 4th round. That's crazy. But because of his
he'll be a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Yeah, because of his lack of experience, that could be the reason. I mean, like you said, he's only got really 1 year under his belt, which was last year, and he ran for 1,000 yards in 11 games. And in 2020, he only played in 4 games. So lack of experience, but if he's anywhere close to David Johnson, who was a fantasy football machine in his good years, and of course we know Alvin Kamara is a stud as well. So if he's anywhere close to those guys, oh my gosh, yes, you're going to steal if you're picking up in the 4th round. And it may not be day one, but who knows? I think he can contribute for some team potentially in the first year. But
yeah, it helps that he's such a natural receiver. I could even see him playing a bit of a hybrid role, kind of the way people wanted Antonio Gibson to play. Antonio Gibson was a receiver in college and then came into the NFL. A lot of people wanted him to play running back and slot receiver. But I think Rachaad White, he can certainly play on a team that's willing to play two running backs on the field at the same time, or flex them out in the slot and take advantage of mismatches if you can get him lined up on a defensive end or a slower linebacker. I think that's where his value is going to come, right off the bat.
Yeah, agree. All right, let's move on here, Chris.
Okay.
Next on our list is Kyren Williams from Notre Dame. What you got on Kyren?
Biggest loser of the NFL Combine in the whole NFL right here is Kyren Williams. He was kind of the sexy pick to be like the second, third, fourth running back off the board. Not a chance. This guy's going to be like a 5th or 6th round pick in the NFL draft. It's really a shame. The guy has elite receiving skills, and he's actually not a bad runner too. The problem is he's far, far, far undersized. And if you're going to be 5'9", 194, which isn't nearly big enough to be a 3-down back or even really a 2-down back in the NFL, you have to have elite speed. And he is slow. So running a 4.65 at 194 pounds is unacceptable. So I don't know. It stinks because this guy is such a interesting player. He is the best pass blocker at running back in the draft, and it's not remotely close. Such a good receiver. He's really good at making people miss in the flat. I think what's going to happen here is you're just hoping this guy turns into James White, right? Who had all those productive years for the Patriots. So I comped him to, Austin Eckler, but like not the talent, just the play style.
Right.
Or like Tariq Cohen. If you remember Tariq Cohen, who had a couple of nice years for the Bears, that's the kind of player you're looking at here. It's a role player who, bring him in on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and leak him out for a pass and hope he can make someone miss. So unfortunately, he doesn't have the size to, even if there's an injury, from the starting running back, Kyren Williams is not starting an NFL game. I'd be willing to say ever. So he's kind of pigeonholed into his own little role, and for fantasy football, that might be okay. So we'll see where he lands. Hopefully with a creative team that's going to use his talents, receiving talents, and make something of him.
So what fantasy football league would you take a guy like this, Chris? Because again, in my traditional league that I'm used to, I'm not touching this guy at all. So what type of league are you taking him in?
Yeah, so in a redraft league, Kyren Williams is not going to get drafted at all. And, he might be a guy you pick up if he's on a team that has a couple of injuries or something like that. But if you're in a dynasty league, especially one that's PPR, you're probably going to take a shot. Kyren Williams is going to be 2nd, 3rd round rookie draft pick, somewhere between 20th to 25th overall. Just you're hoping that he's going to turn into that role player that you can plug in and, get 3, 4, 5 receptions any given week if you're in a PPR league and kind of, be a stopgap for you. I don't think he's ever going to win you a league, but if he's in the right spot, he could be a useful player if your league counts receptions.
So you've mentioned this a couple of times, so educate me a little bit. You talk about these, he's going to be a 3rd round rookie draft. I mean, is there leagues that specifically just draft rookies? You have a whole draft and it's all about just picking up rookies?
That's right. Yeah. So if you play in a dynasty league, so for example, let's just say our dynasty league started in 2019. You do a regular draft like you would with your run-of-the-mill work league or friends league, and you draft a team that's 22 people deep. Well, every year you have a rookie only draft where you draft, every team has 4 picks, and you go, 4 times 12, 48 rookie picks. And then you just cut 4 players that were on your team the prior year. So it's very similar in the NFL, right? So you have 53 players on your roster. You draft 7 players. We'll just say average of 7 players in the draft. And then you have veterans. You're like, I don't really want you anymore. I want to give this rookie a chance. So that's how dynasty leagues work. Yeah. You have a full roster, but you can recycle and bring rookies in each year. So, there's probably only 12 to 15 rookies each year on average that are impactful, truly impactful that first year. But, with dynasty leagues, the roster is usually much deeper. You don't just have like a 15, 16 person roster. You have like a 22, 25 person roster where you're kind of, putting these people at the back end of your bench and, hoping their upside materializes.
All right. Makes sense. I don't have much more to add about Williams. Let's move on to the next.
Okay.
Next on the board is James Cook from Georgia. Talk to me about James.
Cool. So, younger brother of someone we all know, Dalvin Cook.
Wow.
We'll start this with James Cook is not Dalvin Cook. He is not the same style of runner, and he is nowhere close to the talent as his older brother. However, James Cook is really growing on me. He is going to be what we call like a weapon or a third down specialist in the NFL. He is an elite receiver, and he has game-breaking speed. Do yourself a favor and turn on just a highlight reel of James Cook. This guy runs at an absolutely different speed than everyone else on the field, and he plays in the SEC. He continuously runs away from people on any play he gets the ball in space. So this guy is, he's really too skinny to be a starting NFL running back. 5'11", 199. If you're gonna be that tall, you need to be about 208, 210 pounds to take the beating. But man, get me James Cook on like the Packers, the Chiefs on an electric offense that's gonna throw the ball to their running back and let him work. I know he's not going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds, probably maybe not even the 4th round. I don't know. I think he's like a 4th or 5th round draft pick, but he has a very special skill set that's going to be used on a team, and the guy is going to make some highlight plays.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, as far as the weight goes, Chris, all he's got to do is go to one of these towns and then eat all that good food that they have. I mean, I wouldn't want him in Buffalo, but if he came to Buffalo, just stock up on those chicken wings and he'll put on 10, 20 pounds easily. Not a problem, but interesting take here. So some of the notes I have, again, I'm using PFF for a lot of this information, but let's look at some of his stats here in the last few years here for you folks. So last year, 2021, ran for 728 yards, nothing special, 7 touchdowns, had 27 receptions for 30 yards. In 2020, 303 yards, so nothing special, 3 touchdowns, 16 receptions. Again, he's played 3 years. He played 14 games in 2019, 8 games in 2020, and 15 last year. Nothing real special here. Again, you're going to have to talk me into Chris or tell me, why would I even consider this guy?
Yeah, so he was in a full-blown committee at Georgia, and his committee mate is our next running back that we'll be talking about.
That one interests me.
Yeah, so it's just kind of the role he was given, and maybe if he's able to bulk up 8 or 10 pounds, I think we start to get really interested in James Cook. Okay. If he can bulk up 8 pounds and keep that speed, because just for speed and electricity alone, he might be the top in this running back class in just ability to make you say, wow, and, break off a 60, 70-yard touchdown run. He has that kind of, home run hitting ability. Like I've comped him to Darren Sproles, Felix Jones, those players that even if they only touch the ball 3 times a week, it's enough to make a difference and make the defense kind of scheme for them, the fact that they're in the game.
Well, you are right. Speed does kill. I always say that speed kills, and you can, take something to the house on a short little, just a little dump off. And I don't think that the weight is an issue. Chris, he gets working with the trainers and that. I think he can put on some weight if they want him to. I got him at 4.42, which is slightly behind a couple of the other guys we talked about. Mm-hmm. And But yeah, everything, all the experts is just elite speed, home run ability, reaches top speed in a hurry. I mean, very impressive stuff. So I hear you here, and maybe it was because his stats don't look great in college, but you're right. If he's running back by committee, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's
get over to his backfield mate in national championship.
Zamir White, 6 foot, 214 pounds. So another guy who's pretty damn good speed, 4.4. So talk to me about Zamir.
Yeah, his 40 time was one of the surprises of the combine. I don't think anyone was expecting him to run a faster time than James Cook. So if you watch them, they're not the same speed, man. That's why the 40 is interesting, because Zamir White is not faster than James Cook. And, I guess in 40 yards he is, but James Cook, it just has elite start, stop, and agility. Zamir White doesn't really have that. I'm kind of torn on Zamir White. He has good size. He's had 2 ACL tears. And, generally the statement is, don't go looking for injuries. Injuries will find you. Right. So you kind of want to stay away from injury prone players that have, already have knee braces on at 22 years old. But I don't know. He's interesting to me because he invites contact. He enjoys it. He's got a lot of nice wiggle. He runs people over. Yeah, I think he's similar to like a Damian Harris, who's starting running back for New England Patriots right now. Except, he has that speed, that long speed that Damian Harris doesn't have. So he's definitely interesting. If that 4.4 that he ran at the combine was a 4.52, we're not talking about Zamir White today.
Yeah, so interesting enough, like we show on the slide there, and you talked about he had 2 ACL tears in 2017 and 2018. So I'm thinking that's in his high school, because he played 3 years. He played 13 games, 10 games, and 15 games. He was like 400 yards, 779, 859, much like Cook. And you would expect that with a running back by committee, which you just informed me about. But he had 11 touchdowns in 2021, and 2020 also had 11. So those injuries happen, it looks like, based on the numbers I'm seeing here, prior to his college time. So if he hasn't had a relapse, and again, I don't know for sure, maybe you do, but based on the when he's played, and it said that the ACL tears were in 27 and 2018, sounds like that's before his college time.
Yeah, he might turn the corner there. So it's a good point. It's just, one more injury to the knee, and then you're really wondering about his ability to rebound. So I don't know much about double ACL tears. I think he's torn each leg once. So ouch. I don't know what that's like. But that's kind of just a note to have in the back pocket. But I mean it's great to see a runner as productive and as physical as him, have the size of him, to rip off a 4.4. Are you kidding me? So I just want to make one comment about the 40 times. I think the gun at the combine this year was a little off, because there was everyone was running absolutely blazing speeds in running backs and receivers. And I don't know if it was just set off an inch or two, favorable in each way this year or something. But these times are just unreal, almost to the point where you don't believe it. And, I don't want to take anything away from these guys, but there's some players here where, after watching them, play and then watching their 40 time, you're like, that can't be. So just take their times this year with a grain of salt.
Well, there's a couple guys that also were on the opposite end of that, where they were expecting to have faster times than they did, and so maybe it was by position. Where it's the running backs. We're gonna improve their time just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But this is a guy, again, we should be talking fantasy football, but I was related to the NFL in Buffalo, where we have so many 3rd and 1s, and we don't have that guy we can just trust and give the ball to And this guy, short yardage situations, I have no fear at all. This guy's probably going to get it 98% of the time for that 1 yard, which seems to be a real struggle for a lot of teams. I know it was for the Bills. But yeah, super power back there. And I guess if the ACL, there were no more injuries and he's played 3 more years since 2018, I'm not so concerned. But the 4.4 is impressive. And I don't know, maybe there's some truth to what you're saying there with them being a little faster. All right, we got to move on, Chris. I know we're taking a lot of time, so we're going to try to move on. And we love talking about these guys, so let's get to the next one.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. So our next running back, Brian Robinson. Yep. So you're talking he was either a 4th or 5th year player, 1 year wonder. Guy's 23 years old, not what you want to see coming into the NFL, especially in the running back position. But, he hasn't really taken a whole bunch of beating. He didn't play much. As you know, Alabama's been stacked for the last endless amount of years. So when he finally got a chance to play, the guy did produce, had a really couple of nice games, especially in the college playoffs there. Had a huge game. So I don't know, man. He's I'm not overly intrigued with him. Although, for a guy that's 6'2", 225, he shows good hands. I just don't think he's going to be a special guy. I think he's going to make an NFL roster. I think he's going to play in the NFL 4 to 6 years. We'll see if he gets an injury in front of him or something like that, and he gets a chance to play. I just don't think a team is drafting him and building their running back room around Brian Robinson. Just too vanilla, too just Joe Schmo of a prospect for me.
Well, you're right. 1 year wonders. I'm looking at his last year. He had 1,343 yards rushing, had 14 touchdowns. But prior to that, he only had 482 yards and 440. And that was with him playing. He played in 13 games in 2019, 13 in 2020. And again, that breakout year last year. So, but he was also heavily involved. He had 35 receptions. It was only for 38 yards. So that says a lot. That surprised me. 35 receptions for 38 yards. Are you kidding me? That just doesn't seem even possible.
It's yeah. So just because he has a lot of receptions, I would not label him a receiver at all. It's kind of like probably a bailout pass where, just the quarterback's avoiding a sack. But yeah, he's not going to give you much in the passing game. He is intriguing because 6'2", 225 is rare, especially if you're running a 4.5. So I have him comped to Gus Edwards, from my Baltimore Ravens. Big guy, invites contact, can catch the ball if you throw it at him. And, he's a number 2 or number 3 running back and serves a purpose for your team. That's what you're getting out of Brian Robinson. Don't think he's fantasy relevant unless he has injuries on his team.
It is interesting, though. We're about to hit the wide receivers, and I'm looking at this guy. And one guy that I've studied a lot, and we'll talk about him in detail, is Treylon Burks. And I'm looking at this guy's numbers. He ran a 4.53. Treylon ran a 4.55, which was disappointing to a lot of folks in the combine this year. This guy's 6'2". Treylon Burks is 6'3". He's 225. Treylon Burks is 225. So, convert him to a receiver, maybe a Cordell, a Patterson. Now, of course, he's not as fast, and I think Cordell is a little bit bigger. But I don't know. Maybe you're not giving him as much credit as maybe he should get. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Brian Robinson's just probably not going to be a guy I'm paying attention to. But it might bite me. It's that Alabama A on the helmet, means a lot. Usually those guys end up being somewhat decent, don't they?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the wide receiver class, and let's do a little overview, because this draft is stacked with wide receivers. So go ahead, talk to me about wide receivers this year.
This is the strength of the 2022 class. I'm really excited to watch the first round of the NFL draft because it is going to be peppered with wide receivers. Let me see here. I'm trying to think how many I think will go. 1, 2, 3 for sure. 4, 5, upwards of 6, maybe 7 wide receivers. Anywhere from 4 to 7 wide receivers going in the first round. So it's going to be exciting. and to see, what teams covet what skill set, because, there's, consensus, probably like 4 to 5 guys I'd put, way above the rest, and they all have completely different skill sets. There is not 2 of these guys that are remotely similar to each other, and that's what makes it so interesting. That it really depends. Who will go first is totally team dependent and what they're seeking out. So I can't wait to talk about them and talk about what they bring to the table.
All right. Well, the first guy on the board is gentleman I just talked about, Treylon Burks, and I did make one mistake. He's actually only 6'2" as well, so he's looking like very similar to the last running back we talked about, Chris. But anyhow, talk to me about Treylon Burks.
Yeah, way different skill set. Treylon is, a lot of people are going to say, they're off him now, or they're disappointed because of his 4.55. Oh, just freaking cut it out. The guy is a man. He is 6'2", 225 pounds of pure muscle, and he ran a 4.55. Watch the guy play football and tell me he's slow. Yep. You can't do it. So he just absolutely manhandles people. He has absolutely giant arms, giant hands, great at stiff arms. He just has that get off me mentality. Just a super aggressive runner with the ball in his hands. Bubble screen extraordinaire. Great at tracking the ball down the field and jumping over smaller corners. He is just going to be so interesting to watch. And, I think he needs some refinement on, his route tree and, running every single type of route. But in terms of just like a raw athlete and just, hey man, go play football. I want Treylon Burks over anyone. So, and a fun fact about Treylon Burks, he did go to Arkansas, and rumor has it that he loves to hunt hogs. There's hogs everywhere in Arkansas, and he likes to do it without a gun, just a knife.
Oh boy.
And run it. Yeah. So this guy is aggressive. You can see it in his personal life. So I want to hear what you think about Treylon. I'm sure you've done some research on him.
Yes.
With the Bills having a pick at the back end of the first round.
Yeah. So as you can see, his average draft rank is 28th overall based on the 3 boards. He moved down a little bit, like you said. People were disappointed in the 4.55, but this is one guy that I've done a video on, because I started with corners, getting into the wide receivers. He's the first guy I did. And that 4.55, I actually have video clips in that video of him, some highlights, and he pulls away from guys. I mean, he looks, and then the size difference between him and corners is unbelievable. But one game in particular, he was going against Roger McCreary, who's one of the top cornerbacks in this year's draft. They threw the out to him, just a quick little got it out to him. He juked McCreary like he was a 5'10" guy with 4.3 speed. I mean, he juked him. He juked the second defender, and then he pulls away. So this was a guy that I was saying, look, I realized I really believe the Bills need to take a corner, but if this guy fell to the Bills at 25, teaming him up with Josh Allen and Steph Diggs, this is a big physical guy that we don't have. We haven't had this type of player on the Bills in quite some time. So having that physical presence, like a Mike, you got AJ Brown and Des Bryant. I think of Mike Williams as well. That type of guy. I mean, man, it would be hard to pass on him, seeing him go to another team that we're going to have to play against, right? So I'm all about this guy, man. Again, if the Bills had a chance, it's going to be hard for me to say pass on him. So I love this guy. Absolutely. He's going to be a starter, and he's going to be a contributor day one. Those are my thoughts on him.
We'll do one more comment about the Bills. I can't imagine being a defense and the Bills being on the 5-yard line, and their lineup is Gabe Davis on one side, tall, strong Gabe Davis, Treylon Burks on the other side, Diggs in the slot, and Knox at tight end, and Allen at running back, who you have to worry about running. How do you remotely stop that for 4 plays?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So is it worth kind of taking a risk and going corner in the second? Maybe. But again, if this guy's there, I don't know. I'm drafting. And not only am I wanting the Bills to potentially take him, he's going to be on my draft list this year, high up as well. So I think in any fantasy league, you're taking this guy.
Hmm.
and you're taking him. Where do you see him going? So let's talk about that a little bit, because rookies are a risk, right? You just don't know. Like, not everyone's going to be a Jamar Chase like last year. The guy was just one of the top receivers. Jalen Waddle was another good guy who produced. When you're drafting a rookie, you're taking a risk. But where do you see him going? Like fourth round, fifth round, later, earlier? What do you think?
Yeah, I think a little bit later than that. I mean, if you're talking just a single year league, I'm trying to think who I would kind of draft him after. You can't draft him above someone like a Mike Williams. You can't be that aggressive with it. I don't know. I'm probably drafting him somewhere around like 25th, 30th receiver overall, which I think is still pretty strong, right?
Okay.
If you're drafting him to be, I think you'd want him to be your third receiver. So, and then you have, you shooting for that upside on the third receiver, I think is a nice play with any of these next three receivers that we're going to talk about, Treylon, and then the next two. That's what I like to do at least, get your two guys that you're solid with and then shoot for the moon on the third guy. And I think he's a perfect pick for that, especially if he goes to the end of the first round. I think these other two guys we're about to talk about are going to get drafted first in the NFL draft before him, if I had to guess. But Treylon's going to have the better landing spot because this guy is likely going to be on Chiefs, Packers, Bills, somewhere in that range. And you're putting him with any of those quarterbacks, it's wheels up.
Yeah, I think he's anywhere from 20th to 30th pick. He's going late first round, and who knows, somebody can surprise folks and just kind of be playing it, staying quiet and grabbing this guy earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if he was taken top 20. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I've seen a lot of mock drafts having him go right around that sweet spot of 20 to 30. So we'll see. We got lots of receivers to cover. We're all in on Treylon. Let's move on to the next guy.
Cool. Next so our next guy is
Garrett Wilson.
Yep. So next guy, Garrett Wilson. I'll be honest. I think he is my favorite receiver of the big three that we're going to talk about. I just love watching the guy play. It's hard to explain unless you've watched him a lot. He had a great 40 time 4.38, which I think surprised a little bit of people. I think, I kind of expected him at the 4.44, 4.48, something like that, because I wouldn't really describe Garrett Wilson as fast, more so as he is sudden. He's twitchy. He's deceptive. He is just very contortionist, and he is just super sly at getting open, adjusting his body to make catches. He is just a marvel to watch play football. The guy makes absolutely highlight reel catches, and he's just great at plucking the ball out of the air. He never body catches the ball, which is great to see from a young receiver, always catching it with his fingers. So that's why my playstyle comp for him is CeeDee Lamb and Stephon Diggs, plus route runners that are always going to hand catch the ball. They're always going to be open by a yard or two. And then after they catch the ball, they're able to make that first guy miss. That's what you see from Garrett Wilson. He's not a guy that's going to, run fly routes down the field consistently and rip off those 50, 60-yard touchdowns. That's not really his game. He's kind of like that, intermediate, 12, 15-yard, let's get open in the middle of the field, or a nice comeback route. That's really his sweet spot. And he's just so cool to watch play. Just, the ways that he's able to get open and make such, sweet catches. I'm just really excited to see him land on an NFL team.
Yeah. So we talk about some of these guys. We said they're 1 year wonders. He's progressively gotten better, but last year, by far his best year, right? He caught 70 passes for a little over 1,000 yards and had 12 touchdowns, whereas in previous years, he had 700 yards in 2020 and then 432 yards. So he's green, but you see him getting better and better, and you're right. You watch any highlights of this guy, you're like, we got to have him. And obviously the experts are all over him, because on all the boards I had looked at, his average draft rank is 8th overall. So again, there's so many teams in need of receivers, and this year is so stacked. But I do definitely think he's a top 10 pick, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And his stats this last year, they're not going to totally blow you out of the water, but
Yeah.
you have to put the context with that. And here's the context. He was on Ohio State with Chris Olave, who we're going to talk about in
Hmm.
2 picks, who's a first round NFL receiver, and Jackson Smith Najigba, who is going to come out in the NFL next year, and he is a Jamar Chase or better level prospect. So you're sharing the field with Jackson Smith Najigba and Chris Olave, and you still put up those numbers. That's saying something.
Well, you can also flip that, Chris, a little bit. You should be putting up more numbers because those guys are taking more of the coverage, right? So I hear you. I hear you. But yeah, those other guys are definitely getting, focused on a little bit. So, anyhow, big numbers. I'm with you. I've seen some highlights. Love what I see. So we got lots to talk about. Some great receivers. All of them, I feel, that we're talking about are guys that we're drafting for sure in our fantasy football leagues. All right. Next on the board here. Let's move on to your favorite. I know this is your favorite, is Drake London, but I'm just kidding. Drake London from USC. Talk to me about Drake.
Drake London. So you're going to instantly see some, people say, this is the next Mike Williams, big towering receiver, can get down the field, win some jump balls. I'm going to say that's a little bit false. To me, Drake London is not quite that guy. I didn't put Mike Evans as a comp for him, which a lot of people are comping him to. I think he's more crafty than that. I think Drake London is going to be a big slot receiver who excels in the middle of the field and uses his basketball background and his box out ability and his really strong hands to make a living in the NFL over the middle of the field. Think like a field stretching tight end type, or, I think he's actually just going to be like a move the chains guy that plays slot. I mean, having a slot receiver that's 6'4" and has, sticky hands like he does is really hard to come by. So I would not be surprised if Drake London is the first receiver off the board in the NFL draft, just from his pure physical gifts that he has. He didn't run at the combine because he did break his ankle this year.
Yeah.
So he's recovering from that. I don't think he would be super fast, but honestly, even if Drake London runs a 4.6, it's not really worrying us because of his play style. He's a bully receiver. He's going to box you out over the middle. He's going to move the chains. He's going to rough you up once he catches the ball. So that's why I comped him to Vincent Jackson, Brandon Marshall. Those long arms, sticky hands, bully type receivers. That's who you're getting with Drake London.
Yeah, I love your comps there, and the speed that I have him. He's 4.55, and I don't know. Again, he didn't run the combine, and he certainly didn't participate in his pro day. So this must be early on in his college career, somewhere where they were taking some metrics. But I love the size, love the weight. Again, just those big physical wide receivers who can make plays, just throw the ball up, and 50-50 balls, 75% of the time they're going to win that battle. So I like that. And PFF actually has him as the highest going receiver. They have him going at number 5 on the board. And NFL Draft Buzz has him at 10 and CBS at 18. So he's 11th overall, top 10. He's borderline top 10 guy. And I think, if anything, he probably maybe he moved down just a tad because of that broken ankle. But this is another guy.
I think he'll be ready to go.
Yeah,
he'll be ready
absolutely.
to go.
I know. I just think any type of injury always puts a little doubt in folks' mind, but he'll be able to show that. And dominated in 2021. Just a quick thing. He only played 8 games before that ankle injury. Had 1,000 yards, almost 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns and 88 receptions. Chris, just through 8 games. Are you kidding me? This, like I said, he's a man on a field with boys. He just makes him look small, right? And throw the ball up to him, he's gonna make the catch. Great hands. So love what I see here.
Yeah, just one more time. A lot of people are saying like Mike Evans or Mike Williams. I'm just not really seeing that with him. And you can tell by the stats, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, they're not 10, 11 catch a game guys, right?
Yeah.
They're the stretch the field. I hope I get 2 or 3 big plays out of you type guys. This guy's going to be more involved in the offense around the line of scrimmage than that. He's going to be your reliable chain mover. So that's what you're getting with him.
All right, let's move on, Chris. Next on our list is Mr. Jameson Williams. Talk to me about Mr. Williams.
So torn on him, man. I want so badly to just cross him off my list and say, you know what, I like these other guys. Before him, the 3 guys we've already talked about, I definitely like more, and I can probably talk myself into the 2 guys we're going to talk after him I like more. The problem is if he hits his ceiling, good Lord, this guy is a different level of fast. And I don't want to say the Tyreek Hill name because it's used too much. There's only one Tyreek Hill ever, right? So my comps for him are Ted Ginn and Robbie Anderson, 2 people that are extremely fast in their own rights. Jameson Williams did not run the combine. Unfortunately, he had a torn ACL in the national championship game. Don't think he's going to be ready to go at the start of the NFL season, but that is going to give a team a really sweet deal in the NFL draft because he is going to fall down that draft board. If Jameson Williams did not tear his ACL, I think he's the consensus wide receiver 1 this year, because when all you need to do is just get in the ball, whether it's on a reverse, on a screen, or he can just absolutely take the top off of defense. He is so fast and so sudden in and out of his breaks. I don't know that the defense has to completely change the way they play defense, like, a Tyreek Hill, even though he's much different build than Tyreek Hill. He's a very tall receiver, but the way that he can run just completely dictates the defense.
So we got Rick joining us out there. Must have finished up with some of his business. He's saying that Jameson Williams is going to be a bust.
I agree with you.
Chris agrees with you. I wouldn't have blamed you if you put the player comp of Tyreek Hill because of that speed, but definitely that torn ACL at the end of the season. You're going to have to wait on this guy, right? You may not even see him this year. And if you do, it's going to be midway through the year, later part of the season. So not sure he's, and again, you say these one year wonders. I mean, prior to 2021, he had 154 yards receiving and 112, Chris. And then
that was on Ohio State. Yeah, he was on Ohio State with Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then he said, I got to get out of here. I'm not getting on the field. He goes to Alabama and averages well over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown a game. I don't know where the heck that came from. But he's just house call waiting to happen. Personally, I'm going to fade him and take these other guys who I think are much safer bets. But the ceiling is just ridiculous with Jameson Williams.
Yeah, I mean, he had 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns and 20 yards per reception. That's sick.
Crazy. 20 is ridiculous. Yeah.
Hey, Rick saying, hey, great show, guys. Master show tomorrow. Yes, we already had people asking about the Masters early on. Everyone's excited about it, Rick. So hopefully, can't wait to see you and Tony. I'm actually, this is 1 week. I always do all the, the Masters and all the majors. I actually get into DraftKings pretty big. So looking forward to what you guys bring tomorrow. Hopefully helping me bring some great DK lineups to the board. So we'll see you tomorrow. All right, let's move on to the next guy.
Okay, our next receiver.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Mr. Chris Olave, also from Ohio State. Love me some Chris Olave. This guy, just polished is the first thing that comes to mind. He's a pro, super slick route runner. Just his separation skills at the top of his route is second to none. He just looks so clean and Jerry Jeudy like running routes, but I think he has better long speed and deep ability than Jeudy, who's more of a possession guy. That's why my comp for Chris Olave is Tyler Lockett. A guy that's just gonna kind of lull you to sleep a little bit and then pop off that big play. Tyler Lockett's always good for, a 40, 50-yard touchdown every other game. And I think that's what you're going to get with Olave. I think his bust potential is so low just from his skill set, just suits the NFL so much. He's going to be a top-notch wide receiver too for a team. He doesn't have the size and the full skill set to be, a number one receiver in my opinion, but he's going to have 70, 75 catches on a team for many years to come. He's super solid 4-year player at Ohio State.
Do you see him falling? I mean, right now the average draft rank that I have is 21st overall, but where you're talking him is, do you see him at 21 or you see him going much higher than that?
I think he's tough to pin down. Like we said earlier, it really depends on what a team is yearning for, right? Because Olave's skill set is not Treylon Burks. It's not Garrett Wilson. It's not Drake London. It's not even similar to any of those three guys. It's not Jameson Williams. It's completely different. I mean, he's just super polished. He's going to be that complimentary receiver that is just, a high football IQ and is just going to get it done and produce in the NFL. But I don't think he has that ceiling to turn out to be that DK Metcalf, that Dez Bryant, the number one chest pounding receiver. It's not him, right? So it depends what a team wants. I mean, he's just going to be, I really hope he ends up on the Green Bay Packers, something like that. Well, maybe not now that they lost Devontae Adams, but a team where he can slot in as the number 2 receiver, kind of take a back seat, but bust off those big plays, because that's what he's good at.
Would it surprise you if I told you that in his 3 college years he did not have a 1,000-yard season?
Wow, that would surprise me. Yes.
Yeah, he got close with 936 this past year, 727 before that, and 849 the year before that. So surprising. Is that because he had some other guys taking away the ball from him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
touchdowns were there though, Chris. 13 touchdowns, 7 in 2020 and 12 in 2019. So the touchdowns are there.
Yeah, I think in terms of floor, I think you'd be hard pressed. I think you could argue that Chris Olave's floor is higher than any of these guys. They all have kind of, chinks in the armor, and they're kind of different in the way that they win at receiver. The way Olave wins is just, it can't lose, right? He's what he's good at just translates to the NFL so well. I just cannot see him failing in the NFL. And Rick's backing me up here. He says, I sweat Chris Olave so hard, he's going to be amazing in the NFL.
Yeah, so maybe you said this already. So one of the experts on the slide says he doesn't profile as a number 1 receiver. If I'm taking a guy at 21 or even higher, I'm looking for that guy to be a number 1 receiver. Why do you think someone would have said doesn't profile as a number 1 receiver? Maybe you said it earlier and I missed it.
Yeah, he just doesn't have that stereotypical size you want, I don't know. What is a number 1 receiver? You don't really know. Stephon Diggs is certainly a number 1 receiver, and he's about 6 foot 190, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you don't always need the size. Tyreek Hill doesn't have the size, but Chris Olave just doesn't have that. I'm going to take over the game and put my team on the back this game mentality. That's why I loved the Tyler Lockett, right? Tyler Lockett always played second fiddle to someone, but he was Russ Wilson's guy. In the red zone, he can always count on Tyler Lockett to get open. When he need to hit that big play over top, Tyler Lockett. So I just really, I can't unsee it, right? I've seen it, and that's just who I think he's going to be. Yeah.
All right. I hear you, Chris. Let's move on. Next on our list is Mr. George Pickens, who I'm a big fan of. So I'll let you talk about Mr. Pickens.
Tough one for me. I don't know how to describe this guy except for all I can ever think about is a junkyard dog. He is just, the aggressiveness that this guy plays with is almost scary. I mean, he's known for being a total hothead. likely going to be a problem on the sidelines, perhaps off the field too. I know he had something going on, with suspensions and whatnot. I didn't really look into his, police sheet or what exactly he did, but there's plenty of film going around of him, ripping people's helmets off and getting into, shoving matches and punching matches. But enough about that. Let's talk about him as a player. If he didn't have this injury this last year, I think he's in the Jameson Williams mold, right? Where you're saying, well, if he wasn't hurt, are we talking about him in the top 3 receivers of the class? And I think the answer is yes, because his skill set is just amazing. 6'3" frame, 195 pounds, but he plays much bigger than that. I mean, I can't believe that he's 30 pounds less than Treylon Burks, because the way that he looks in a football uniform and the aggressiveness that he plays, is more along the lines of like a Treylon. So you're getting a much bigger, more physical, dominant style receiver with George Pickens than you are with these other guys. He's going to take on the other team's number 1 corner and enjoy it, right? And get in a battle with them all day and take them on. So that's kind of who you're getting with Pickens.
I see Jake joining us out there. Good to see the guys on the channel coming out to show their support. He's saying George Pickens is a tough SOB. You remember Carl Pickens? I do remember Carl Pickens. Did he not play for Cincy or?
Sounds right.
Yeah, so I
don't know. Is there any relation, Jake?
Yeah, Jake. Did you bring him up because he's related to him? Be interested to know. If anyone knows, Jake knows. You're right, Chris. So this is a risk, right? This guy's a risk. He's, believe it or not, though, even with that ACL, and believe it or not, with his, if you look at his stats, he only had 107 yards last year. He only played in 4 games, 513 yards in 2020, 8 games. It's really his best year was 2019, where he had 726 yards. He had 8 touchdowns in that year in 2019. So bit of a risk. Love the size. Speed's good. But again, for me, being a Bills fan, if I'm going to look at this guy, it's probably going to, because the Bills are 57th in the overall in the 2nd round. He could be around there, but it's a risk. I don't know if it's a risk I'm willing to take with a 2nd round pick. It's just my opinion, especially for the other things you talked about. I don't want another Antonio Brown on my team. I don't want a guy who's got these off the field issues. And, he's got a reputation for being a hothead. Who knows? That's college. Maybe he matures and that's not really a thing. So I don't know. A risk. I like him. But only if he's available for me in the 3rd. And I don't think he's going to be there, honestly.
No. Yeah, I think he's a top of the 2nd round to middle of the 2nd round guy. I just think he's super intriguing because if everything lines up, I mean, this is the guy that you say, if he can get his temper in check. We want him to be aggressive, right? Because that's what makes him George Pickens. Is he is ultra aggressive. You don't want to get near him because he's pissed off all the time. So that's what makes him who he is. So you don't want to take that away from him. If you can just keep the penalties at a minimum and keep his sideline demeanor at a minimum. I know I'm asking for a lot here, but that would make him a great receiver because his skill set, his speed, his height, his hands, his playmaking ability is pretty much unrivaled. And, I think it's just so cool. None of these receivers we talked about are remotely close to each other in what they do. So I think the order that they go in the draft is going to be so interesting to really see what teams covet what skill set.
Yeah. Jake's out there. He said his brother-in-law saw Vic Carucci the other night at the Sabres game, and he's hot on the Bills going back-to-back corners. I have seen some shows saying that corner. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, because we do think the Bills are set. I hate to say this to you, Chris. I know you're a Ravens fan, but I think the Bills did so many great moves in this offseason. They are primed to win a Super Bowl, and they're taking the Rams blueprint and going with it all the way. They're missing a corner. We have a Trey White coming back off injury, and of course we lost Levi Wallace, so we need some corners. I wouldn't be surprised. Anyhow, this is fantasy football. Like I said, I love George Pickens, and I would take him. I'm not going to risk my 57 pick with him. I'm just not, because of that ACL. Again, I don't know if he's ready to go. and I don't know, but it would be a stretch. I know I'm not going to get him at the 87th pick in the third round. It really would depend if I would like to see the Bills go corner and receiver. If he's the only guy there, I don't know. I might take a risk. I just don't know, Chris. I'm torn.
In fantasy drafts, this is all landing spot dependent, but in fantasy drafts, just neutral landing spots, I can't take Pickens over Olave. I can't take him over Jameson Williams, or definitely not any of the top three guys. So he's kind of oddly in like a tier of his own, I think, where, if he ends up on a good team where he can kind of slot in as that number 2 receiver, I'll be interested, but I'm not reaching for him.
Yep. I agree. All right, let's move on. Next guy here. So many good receivers. So many good. This guy, Chris, when you sent this over to me, this is a guy I didn't have on my radar. But let me tell you, he's on my radar right now. I love this. Christian Watson. Talk to me about him.
So his best season in college was this past season. He had 43 catches, 800 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's his best season by far. So when you're drafting Christian Watson, you're drafting a hope and a prayer and, an archetype, right? Very rare you're going to find someone that's 6'4", 208 pounds, and runs a 4.36. The guy is tall, he's lanky, and can absolutely fly. But my comp for him, I have 2 comps, and it's like my number 1 comp for him when I watch him play is Robert Woods. So I know Robert Woods does not have his height, but he reminds me of the way Robert Woods plays, in that he loves to take reverses, and he also has that long speed down the field to, break one tackle and take it to the house. So when I think Christian Watson, I think Robert Woods, I think athlete, and man, he's someone that I don't care how much college football you watch. This guy was nowhere near anyone's radar until the Senior Bowl. He showed up at the Senior Bowl and just absolutely dominated everyone. No other receiver deserved to be there except Christian Watson. He was the cream of the crop, and everyone was like, who the heck is this guy? He didn't have great stats. He came from a small school. So here he is. You have an absolute athletic specimen that's now going to go at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round in the NFL draft.
Did you just say beginning of the second round? Or did you say first
end
round?
End of the first.
End of the first. Wow. Okay. Well, I love what I see there again on the size and the speed. Love that 6'4", weight 208. I think it's a stretch for the first round, but Chris, I trust you. I mean, you are the fantasy guru. I
wouldn't bet on it even money. I however would not be shocked if he ends up at one of those, the receiver needy teams at the end of the first round. It wouldn't shock me.
All right. I made a bet with you earlier. I forget to write it down, but I'm going to write this one down. I'm going to have Christian going late second. That's where I'm going to have him going. We'll see who was lucky enough to grab him. Jake's out there. He's asking if Alec Pierce was the guy that we talked about, and we did not. And the reason is we don't even have him on any of our slides. He's on Jake and I's radar. And we talked about him earlier, but he's not on our radar for this show. But we'll give him an honorable mention. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Jake has him comparing to like a Jordy Nelson, and that guy, again, just wowed people at the combine this year. And another big guy, 6'3", runs like a 4. I think he runs a 4.41, something crazy like that. Actually, when you watch the combine, he actually ran like a 4.3 something, but that wasn't the official time. When it came out official, it was 4.4. So, Chris, that goes against what you were saying. They were trying to make guys faster. They actually corrected that.
Oh yeah. He was really fast the first go round. I remember that.
Yeah. So anyhow, he gets an honorable mention. So love what I see, and this is a guy that you put on my radar here. Again, I could see him going again. I'm gonna say late second.
Mm-hmm. You're definitely right. More likely to go middle of the second round, late second round. However, I think if a team falls in love with what Christian Watson could be, super raw, talent, I think there's a chance,
I
he
mean,
could go
he's
into the
wearing
first.
in this picture here. He looks like he's wearing the Packer uniform, and they just lost the best receiver in the NFL. So maybe. I mean,
I can see it.
he's got the size and speed.
To answer Jake's question, I think Alec Pierce is kind of discount Christian Watson, right? So Alec Pierce is going to be third or fourth round receiver. Christian Watson, second round receiver. So if you're a team seeking that skill set, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Let's see who's on our list next here. Next up, Jahan Dotson. Talk to me about Mr. Dotson there, Chris.
Really like this guy. The knock on him, kind of soft. If you're 5'11", 178, really want to see you fly. His speed, I don't want to say like on tape, he doesn't have that like absolute second gear, home run hitter speed, but the guy's just super solid. Racks up touchdowns, really silky route runner. He is soft, struggles against press coverage, but I look at him at like a Deontay Johnson, younger Emmanuel Sanders, maybe like a T.Y. Hilton ish type. So that's how I see Jahan Dotson. I think I was hoping at 4.43 is definitely not slow. But to be undersized, I was kind of hoping he ran in that Christian Watson, 4.37, 4.38 range to make him a true, track star. So I guess slight knock, but it's hard to knock a guy that ran 4.43. But I don't know. I really like this guy. Another thing, he just has a ton of swag. I just love receivers that get up, and I'm not going to say like overly like cocky, but he catches the ball, gives the defender a little nod, like, let's go, maybe you'll get me next time. Like this guy just has that, swagginess about him. So big fan of his.
Yeah, he's had that nice progression you like to see in college players. He had 480 yards in his first year, 884, and then 1182 in last season. He went from 5 touchdowns in 2019 to 12 touchdowns last year. Really nice year. Again, the boards have him somewhere in the middle of the second round. And so I like your comps there. Perfect comps with Deontay Johnson and Emmanuel Sanders. I want to talk to you. I mean, 4.43, Chris, you were saying if you saw him in the 4.3s, we're talking tenths of a second. We're talking like maybe the guy slipped out of the block on the I mean, we're talking like milliseconds, tenths of a second, and who knows, it could have been a bad combine, and he would maybe, I don't know if he participated in the pro day. I don't have that information, because some of these guys was kind of cool. Some of them participated in the combine, and then they also, like a week or two later, participated in the pro day, and in some cases they were a bit faster. But you're saying the tracking that they do at the pro days is not as accurate as the combine, is what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I think it's hand timed usually at pro days, and it usually gives them a little benefit there. But yeah, not that, like I said, 4.43 is not slow. I think people were just hoping and thinking Jahan Dotson was going to be, in the 4.3s somewhere, but it's not really who he is, right? He's quick. He's not he's not. He's not going to run fly routes. It's just not really who he is. So he's has supreme quickness, and he's going to beat you that way. There's a difference between being fast and being quick, right? So he's agile, he's quick. That's why I give him the Deontay Johnson comp.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple little more quotes here from PFF. He's a player for the acrobatic catch, has only a 5.2% drop rate over his career. And what's really impressive is last year, they're saying that he only dropped 2 of his 93 catchable targets. That's incredible. That's insane.
Yeah, he's what's his touchdowns each year? Do you have it there?
Yes, I do. I do have that for you. So
I think he's been pretty good.
It went from 5 in his first year to 8, and then and last year it was 12. So nice progression. Just what you want to see in a guy. And Again, they have him. The boards currently have him going mid-second. Do you think that's where you see him going?
I think this is another guy. If he goes at the back end of the first round, I'm not going to be shocked. So if there's a team that wants this skill set and they think that is what's, in between them and a deep playoff run, I think that they'll go for it. So I think there's going to be more receivers in the first round than normal.
I agree.
Up six receivers in the first round. We'll see.
Yeah, and to Jake's point again, I'm varying off fantasy football, but if we went corner first round, second round, I think there'd be a pretty damn good receiver still available in the third round. That's how stacked they are this year. So, All right. So again, Chris, I got to say, every receiver here that we've talked about so far is going to be drafted, I think, in any fantasy football league. That's just my opinion so far. Any league you're in, whether they're going to be early round or late round, these guys will all be taken. Thoughts on that?
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the NFL is a little bit different than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago in that you don't really see as much anymore like, oh, you're a rookie. That means you sit on the bench for a year, maybe 2, and then we'll let you get involved in the offense. If you're drafted in the first, second round in the NFL draft, you're on the field immediately. And we're seeing that out of guys, look at Justin Jefferson, look at Jamar Chase. I mean, Chase was a little different because he was, top 5 overall, I believe, but they're taking these guys and putting them right into the fire and say, you're athletic, you're young, go out there and do work. So if any of these receivers that are drafted in the first or second round, you can confidently draft them in fantasy and know that they're going to get a shot in their rookie year.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said, first and second round, I don't want to take too much of a risk. I want guys, and there's so many good guys out there. I don't need to take a risk. So we were talking about Pickens a few slides ago. A little bit of a risk. I know they're saying he's going to go in the second, but I would take Dotson over him just because I feel more comfortable with him. I feel I'm going to get production right away, and I don't have any of the other things to worry about. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Great segue, Mike, into comfortable and production right away. Tell us about our next
David
guy.
Bell from Purdue. This has got to be, I'm going to say, Jake, this has got to be one of your guys. I'm saying it right now. Let us know, but go ahead and talk about him, Chris.
Oh, man. I think I might have a crush on David Bell. He is probably one of the biggest losers from the combine. You'll notice from his 40 time 4.65, not impressive at all. It kind of makes me like him more to acquire in rookie drafts and in fantasy drafts because his stock has gone down. Yeah, man, just look at his production. So here's his catches by year. He had 86 catches. And then in the COVID shortened year, he had 53, which was a half of year. So he would have had pushing 100. And then his junior year, which is his last year, he had 93. So 86 would have been 100 and then 93. Here's his touchdowns: 7, 8 in 6 games in the shortened year, and then 6. The guy is just ultra reliable, ultra consistent. And when I think David Bell, the first thing that comes to mind is pro. The guy is just a pro. He is a lot like Olave, not in play style, but in the floor that they have for the NFL. David Bell's skill set is literally a cannot miss in the NFL. There is no way that this guy is just a total bust because he is just an elite level possession receiver. He's never going to take the top off of defense. He's never going to rack up 1,500 receiving yards in a season. He's never going to, that's just not him. David Bell is like the ultimate receiver that a quarterback is going to fall in love with. He's going to be a third receiver on a team, and he's going to have a couple seasons with 80, 85, 90 catches, maybe only for 10, 11 yards per catch. But that is the type of guy. He's super reliable. He's crafty. He has outstanding hands. That's why my 2 comps for him are Anquan Bolden and Keenan Allen. Just absolutely love this guy. 212 pounds on a 6'1" frame with outstanding hands and great route runner. I just love him for the NFL. You know, probably a better NFL player than fantasy player. I think he's going to be really valuable to a team.
Do you see him being a number 2 receiver?
I see him as a, a a number 2 to 3 receiver. I think he's going to be a big slot player, you know, one of those guys like Bolden who, you know, just sits in the slot, eats up linebackers, gains that separation in the middle of the field. Because, you know, David Bell's not running away from anyone. He's not going to take a corner one-on-one on the outside and beat him up the sideline or beat him on a post. It's just not who he is. And he knows who he is. So he just makes his living in the slot in the middle of the field, you know, eating up safeties and nickel backs and linebackers. And he has the body for it, the hands for it. And I can just see it. He's going to be a QB favorite.
Well, I don't have much to say about him other than you and Jake said it pretty much already. I agree.
Nice. Jake says tough, gritty, and polished. If he's if you want to break it down to one word, he's just a pro. He's ready. He's had 3 super productive years. I just don't see many downfalls to his game other than his straight line speed. So, in terms of just being a NFL receiver, I mean, he might be the best in the class of just having, you know, really solid traits, you know, around the board. You know, one of my other comp for him is Rashad Bateman, who's on the Ravens. And the big thing about Bateman is like the guy's at 8 out of 10 at everything. You know, he's not great at anything, but he's not going to hurt you anywhere. So I think that's David Bell.
All right. So that concludes our wide receivers. We're going to go into one tight end that we have, but a couple honorable mentions. We're going to talk, and I'm curious, Chris, because these are the guys you picked out for us to talk about. But Alec Pierce, who many have rated higher than David Bell, you didn't have him on our slides. So I'd be curious why that was. And then another guy who seems to be getting a little bit of buzz is Calvin Austin III, a little gadget guy from let's see, where did he play at here?
Memphis.
Yes, Memphis. So another guy, like, again, you said it, I hate to throw it out there, but Tyreek Hill, like, fast little gadget guy, get the ball to, maybe like a Tariq Cohen, who you referred to earlier, type guy. Just a small guy that you can just get the ball to and make things happen, run that jet sweep, do kinds of things. So first of all, back to my original question, why did Alec Pierce not make the list?
Yeah, Alec Pierce, you know, super high ceiling if he can turn out to be that Jordy Nelson type, you know, kind of like weight room warrior, really fast, kind of like late bloomer type. I didn't really know much about him until the combine. And, you know, everyone was kind of oohing and ahhing at the combine. I guess I'm not totally on the train. You know, I think he was like double catching a lot of balls and having some drops. He didn't seem to be doing quarterbacks a lot of favors, but I don't know why. There's just something about him I'm not in love with, but you know, there's a lot of other people smarter than me that are absolutely drooling over Alec Pierce and the upside that he has. I just think he's a risky prospect. I mean, he's good. He looks good in underwear at the combine, but I don't know. I think he has a long way to go to become an NFL receiver. Just my take. He's got
first of all, the guy's tall. He's got an incredible vertical leap. I think it's over 40 inches, broad jump. And he's an athlete, unbelievable
90th percentile athlete. I mean, the guy's just incredible. Yeah.
So, you know, honorable mention there. And then Calvin Austin, just to give you some more information about him. I mean, 1,000 yards in 2020, 1,145 yards this season. 11 touchdowns in 2020, 8 touchdowns in 2021, and average yards per catch is about 15.5, 16 yards. So again, looks like you lost me on camera. Can you still hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. All right. Well, for some reason my camera is gone dead, but you'll still hear me. And thankfully we're on our last person we're going to talk about here.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, Calvin Austin, the reason I didn't list him is solely size reasons. It's, I think, a very low hit rate to be his size and succeed in the NFL. I mean, Tavon Austin didn't really make it in the NFL. Had a disappointing year this last year from Rondale Moore, who a lot of people were really high on. And, Rondale Moore is just an absolute juiced up version of Calvin Austin. So, maybe if in the right system, players like that can break out, but there's so many examples of these small receivers that don't do anything, Tavon Austin, Rondale Moore, Tutu Atwell, like all these really small guys that just, when they play college ball, they just say, guess what? I'm faster than you. So I win. It doesn't work that way in the NFL. So I'm hesitant on Calvin Austin. I think he's very electric player in the right system, could make a name for himself. I'm just not going to hold my breath.
Gotcha. There you go. Camera came back here. Well, Chris, I got to say, I think you put my camera to the test today. We're breaking records here on Nickel City Mafia. We're currently at 2 hours and 9 minutes, which I think even breaks Rick's and Tony's record because they're known for talking forever. But my camera
doesn't feel like long, Mike. I know. It's going,
I love it. I
quick.
know. I'm thinking, oh man, we've been on for 2 hours and 9 minutes. It doesn't feel like that. Absolutely agree. Well, let's talk about, my camera's back, thankfully. Let's talk about this last guy that we have, the only tight end that we have on the board, and Mr. Trey McBride from Colorado State. Talk to me about why don't we have more tight ends? Is just bad year for the tight ends, I guess, huh?
I know.
But this guy looks special. But go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, it's. I think we were all a little spoiled last year. We had the best tight end prospect in, 7-8 years in Kyle Pitts, and he looks like he's going to be every bit as good as we thought he was going to be. So yeah, last year Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth got us a little bit spoiled, but this year, haven't really looked too deep into the tight ends, and there's probably a couple of diamonds in the rough there. Jelani Woods is another person that I didn't list. That's a real special athlete out of, I think he went to University of Virginia Tech, something like that. But he's another one to keep your eye on. But the rule of thumb is in 1 year fantasy football leagues, just don't draft rookie tight ends. I mean, I think even drafting Kyle Pitts, who's like a unicorn of an athlete and was drafted, top 5 overall in the NFL draft last year, it was still a mistake from where his draft position was. So just do not draft Trey McBride this year, please. But if you're in a dynasty league, different story, because Trey McBride looks like pretty special of a prospect. I have him comped to Greg Olsen and Heath Miller. At the Senior Bowl, he was absolutely just turning heads. Guy didn't drop a pass all week at the Senior Bowl. He has ideal size for a tight end. You probably wish he was like an inch taller, but 6'4", 245, 250, that's more than enough, especially the way that he plays the game. He's not really like a bully, like box out type of tight end like an Antonio Gates. He's a field stretcher. He runs up the seam, catches the ball on the move, and keeps moving. So that's why I love Greg Olsen as the comp for him. Catch it on the run, give a stiff arm, and keep it moving. So I love McBride. Not quite sure of his draft capital, probably mid-second round, but almost guaranteed to be the first tight end off the board in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, most boards having them going middle of the second round. And it's interesting, Greg Olsen and Heath Miller comp, to me, they were Greg Olsen was, to me, a very stud tight end, a guy that I would draft. Heath Miller was a guy I would take way down on the board. So again, if he's anywhere in the middle, absolutely fantastic, in my opinion.
Man, but I love any Pittsburgh Steelers fans hear you say that. I've been to so many Ravens Steelers game in my life. I have like the Heath ingrained in my head.
But just to give you some numbers here, again, we talk about these 1 year wonders. I mean, in 2019, he only had 560 yards. I feel like he must have got hurt in his second season in 2020 because he only played 4 games. He had 330 yards.
I think that was COVID shortened year.
Okay.
And I think he had an injury. Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, in 2021, huge year, 1,125 yards.
What stands out, though?
But here's interesting. 1 touchdown. So that red zone target that you want from tight ends, what happened there. So a little concern there, but I mean, everything else looks good. But yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say we'll take the one touchdown as a benefit of having him slide down the board because that's just with 90 catches and 1,100 yards, the one touchdown thing is just not going to happen regularly.
Yeah.
We'll chalk it up to, being tackled on the 1 or 2 yard line a couple of times. I'm sure that happened. And we'll chalk it up to the offensive coordinator is an idiot and doesn't scheme this guy open in the red zone, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just because he's more of like a slot receiver or field stretcher that doesn't really not in the red zone packages. But with the hands that this guy shows and the prototypical size, there's no way he's landing on an NFL team and an offensive coordinator isn't figuring out how to immediately get him in the red zone packages.
Yeah, I mean, in 2020 he had 4 games and he had 4 touchdowns, a touchdown per game. So. I agree. Let's chalk that one up to, offensive coordinator making some bad calls there down by the goal line. Or they had some other weapons that were just able to easily take advantage of the opposing defenses. So who knows? But I like it. He's middle of a second round for sure. And I agree. So he's going to be the first tight end taken off the board. Absolutely. So, wow, Chris, we got through everyone. Actually incredible. 2 hours and 14 minutes. Yes, breaking records. Love it. You actually, my camera, it must have some time out at 2 hours because it just went dark on me. I had to actually turn it off and turn it back on. It was like, damn, Mike, you're stressing me out here. But that was so much fun. I appreciate it, Chris. I mean, fantasy football, talk to me about what you guys have planned in the future for the fantasy football show with you and Rick.
Yeah, our next couple of football shows, we're going to do one in, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks here. Not specifically fantasy related. We'll touch on some fantasy things, but we'll talk about the NFL draft and we'll do a mock draft and talk about those landing spots and how they'll affect fantasy football. But then after that, as we get into the spring and summertime, peak off season, we'll start to ramp you guys up and get ready for your fantasy football drafts. Definitely want to do a show on the different type of fantasy football leagues and the strategy you should take for each and why you should play each type of league. And then we're going to do another 1 or 2 more live mock drafts. So we'll get 12 guys 12 guys or girls all together, and we'll run a mock draft, show you the board real time, and have different people that we're friends with or other people from the industry get together and do a real time mock draft. I'm sure Jake will join us. Yeah. Other people from the channel will join us. That'll be tons of fun. It was a great time last year when we did that to really, Rick and I will really talk through the mock draft, break down each person's picks as they're making them. To kind of get you into the mindset. Not all of fantasy football is about the players. Sometimes it's more about the process and the build of your team. So I know, having players is kind of what it's all about, but there's a different way to think about it too, is like, I should definitely build my team this way instead of that way. So we'll kind of get you into the psyche of how to win fantasy football leagues.
Yeah, you guys were so good last year. We had a lot of folks just coming in the channel. One of the cool things about our channel is we do things pretty much live. All our shows are live, so you can actually come to the show and ask those tough questions. We had a lot of folks coming to you and Rick and like, hey, should I trade this? Should I make this trade? And you guys gave them some great information. And you're not able to get that all the time. And you can ask your friends, but getting it from guys like you and Rick who really know fantasy football and the strategies and the players. I mean, it was super helpful. And that mock draft that we did, one of the most successful shows we did all last year in Nickel City Mafia. It was so much fun. I participated in that. We didn't have Jake yet at that time, but we're going to have Jake this year. And he loves that type of stuff. We're doing some mock drafts as well, but it's going to be in relationship to the Bills, who we think the Bills are going to be taken in 3 to 4 rounds. We have those shows coming up soon. I was wondering if you guys were going to do a Ravens mock draft. That my son would love it. You do know my son's favorite team is the Baltimore Ravens.
You just gave us an idea. I think we need a mock draft for the Ravens, and we'll get 3 or 4 Ravens fans. So me and Rick for sure, your son for sure. We'll see if we can pull a 4th person in, get him on the show. Let's go. Let's. Yeah, awesome. I would love to do a 3 or 4 round Ravens mock draft.
we could even do one together. We can do, because you can pick on those simulators. Like, all right, we're gonna have Ravens and we're gonna have the Bills, and when those picks come up, we'll have the Ravens side of the house pick, and when the Bills come up, I think you guys are at what, 14th or 15th overall in the first round this year. Is that where your Ravens are picking?
14. Yep.
14. Sweet. Where do you think they're going? Because my son's been asking me.
Oh boy. So the Ravens are notorious for sit still, don't panic, and you either get your one or two players that you're hoping are falling to you, or you trade back. So I think the Ravens' dream scenario, and it's probably a pipe dream, is that Kayvon Thibodeau falls to 14, which, with his off the field concerns, I guess it looks slightly likely, but I also think the guy could go second overall in the draft. Wow. So I don't really know there. I've seen him mocked a couple times to the Ravens lately, so maybe people think he's sliding, but I think even if Thibodeau gets to 10, we're pouncing on the trade up there. I think that's got to be our number one target that we hope slides. Another one would be Derek Stingley Jr., the corner out of LSU. We have two strong corners already, but you can never have enough corners in today's NFL. Yeah. So Derek Stingley, I think we're looking at, and then the third person would be big bad Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia. So I think those are the three guys. If they fall to 14, we would sit tight and make a confident selection there.
Yeah, Jordan Davis is so scary. I mean, and you're talking about corners, and I mean, have you looked at the NFL these days? Have you looked at the AFC and with the draft class this year? Wide receivers are getting taller. They're getting faster. You're going to need some stud corners to keep pace with them. And I think there's a good class this year as far as corners go. And that's why I think Buffalo's going to go with their first pick. And Jake's even saying they might even go 1 and 2 with corners. It wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, look what's happening in the AFC alone. And it was funny because you and Chris were on a group chat, and he's like, can we get into the NFC? Can the Ravens transfer to the NFC? The AFC is just
so strong,
loaded.
Yeah. I think I know you probably did a video on Andrew Booth Jr.
I did.
He could slide to the Bills, man.
I know.
I think he was supposed to be, around 10 or a dozen, up there. But I remember at one point thinking, man, I hope, since Stingley will be gone top 10, I hope Booth falls to the Ravens. But with his injury concerns, I think he is someone that could slide farther than people expect. So you could have a real nice player there in the late 20s.
Yeah, he wasn't able to participate in the combine because he was training for the 40-yard dash and pulled his quad muscle. Okay, 2 weeks later is his pro day. Everyone's hoping maybe he can partake in that. Wasn't able to. Then announced that he's having a surgery on his core muscle, whatever that is. I don't know, but yeah. So there's definitely some injury concerns there, but that's just going to help him slip down the board. And I'd have no problem if we took him at number 25. Absolutely no problem there. So lots of good things on the channel, Chris. You're going to continue. One of the things I'm looking forward to that I asked you guys to do this year, I was like, can you please break down in detail these different types of leagues? Because I want to start venturing into some of these leagues, and I need to be educated, and I'm going to be searching YouTube, and I'd rather be listening to you guys do this. So break down those leagues for me, the strategies around them, what I should be thinking. Going to be super helpful, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we have our golf show, which is going strong. It's been going strong for a while now, and they're getting off to a little bit of a late start on the Masters this week. I mean, we're coming out tomorrow around sometime in the afternoon. Rick and Tony are going to be going off with the Masters show tomorrow, so looking forward to that. And let's see what else we got going. Chris, Jake and I are going to be doing some more Bills mock drafts. We might even team up with one of our good friends from one of the other channels, Sean from Red, White, and Bills. Good stuff from Sean all the time. And I think Chris, the last time we saw you was right before our I think it was the Super Bowl preview show that we did, right? Yeah. It was a long time. So good to have you back. I know the fans have been asking for you, and I know you've been itching The fans have been saying, "Where is Chris?" And
Yeah, man. So yeah, I'll talk fantasy football and NFL in general anytime you guys want to. So let's I'll see you in 2 weeks, and let's do a full NFL first round mock draft and talk about all these great players, because I think we have some studs coming in the NFL this year.
I agree. All right. Well, that's it for me. If you're new to the channel, once again, please comment, like, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. We greatly appreciate it. By the way, I should have said this earlier because no one stays around to the end of the show. But if you're catching the end of the show, I want to let you know that we have a special giveaway that we're going to be kicking off here in about a week or so. That is really for our subscribers. We've had a couple big giveaways and we kind of opened up that to everyone. But this one's really to give back to our subscribers and show our appreciation. So we're going to have a nice, and it's not too late. Even during when that thing breaks, it's going to go for about 2 weeks. And if you want to become a subscriber and get on that contest, absolutely great. But it's really geared to the subscribers on our channel. We're at 415, Chris. I mean, when you started, we were probably in the 80s when this stuff when you started.
We
with
weren't
this
quite 100.
channel.
I remember. You telling us we hit 100.
Yeah, so it's been growing, and then I recently saw
let's set a date for 500 that we have to hit it by. What do you think?
Yeah, let's see.
My birthday, June 6th.
Oh man, I with the giveaway and all the great content that's going to be kicking off, I like that. That's pretty reasonable, I think. June 1st, you said?
June 6th.
June 6th. All right, I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to say by the middle of May, we're going to hit it.
Wow,
that's
nice.
That's going to require us to get some really big shows going. But anyhow, so appreciate you all, and Jake and everyone else on the channel. Always fun when you guys participate. It just makes the show that much better, and that's why we do the live shows. And we're here to answer questions, and nobody does it better than this guy over. What is it? I'm pointing to the wrong way. This guy on the side of me, Mr. Chris Caldwell, and Rick will return for the normal fantasy football shows. Again, I'm just filling in for him. So we'll see you guys. Everyone have a great time. We'll see you soon. Take care, Chris. Thanks again, man.
Later.